close my Good evening, good evening, good evening. Am I let's check the relevant okay. It seems we are on. I think we are on. And good evening, people. We're not playing StarCraft 2. That is not where we are. No, test G. Changing, this is 3. Shake. Into the big proper. Into the big proper. Multiplayer games makes English, yeah, be thoughtful. Yeah. And also, category. Yeah, just chatting. 10% of my CPU. Alrighty. Hello. This is Tomahawk. Here about 25 minutes, no, 35 minutes before my debate today with on Eek Species channel. Yeah. Where did it go? Where did my chat go? What the heck? Hello, new followers. Thank you very much. We are here. You set the default. This time right now is the pre-debate jitters, getting it all out so that I can go into the debate with a relatively clear mind. I hope everybody is doing well today. And this ought to be a real fun. This ought to be a fun time. I have my topic. I've got my notes essentially. Uh, an opening statement that's gonna be something, and it is going to be, and it's an opening debate, an opening statement that's gonna be something, and let's just see how I do. My mind is a mess, and I don't really know what to say at the moment except just getting it out, just trying to get it out of my system as best as I can before I just got home from work. So I'm physically tired. Well, not really physically tired. I can still keep going. I can still run, but um now I have to switch over. I have to switch from physical to mental. Sup, food? Been well. Oh, thanks, KY. Holy shit. Haven't seen that name in a very long time. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, dude. It's been a while to see you as well. Something a little different. It's not Smash today. It's debating some people. It's debating a topic that may or may not be all that interesting. To anyone who doesn't know me from Smash, or anyone who knows me from Smash rather. But yeah, these are just the pre-debate jitters that I'm getting out. Uh, I need to what post the post the link here because it's what's the topic? Oh, this is a fun one. Let's see if I can't. It is, does systemic racism, it's super political. I'll just say that much. It's super political. But does systemic racism exist in the United States? This is going to be a watershed moment for anyone that has known me before this point. They're likely going to experience some very heavy whiplash. Let's see. Let's pin the manually unpin. You can follow the debate on that channel. He's a great guy. But again, it's gonna be super it's a super watershed, or it may even be a mask off moment for you. Unstable. Well, here's hoping. You've got it, bro. Just wanted to drop by and see how you were doing. Hope you've been well. Again, happy holidays. Hey, I've been well, dude. I've been well. Job is going on. Job is going well. Life is going well, and I'm. You could one could say that I'm exploring new ventures. And honestly, you are a humongous help because now I have somebody to talk to. Stream says it's unstable, but hopefully it doesn't seem unstable on your end at least for the viewer and whatnot. But it should be quite fun. I can't pop you out, so I can mod actions, active mod, unban requests. It's good to see you, my man. I hope you're doing well. I know it's been a while. It's been years at this point. Holy shit, since I've seen you. But I hope you're doing well, dude. So far, everything is okay. I just can't pop my chat out. That's the unfortunate. Switch stats. Oh, there it is. It's on a different. It's on a different. Yeah. Good. I can. I can. Where do you work at now? I work at a. I work at FedEx, and I still play Smash every now and then. It's just that my Switch has this bulge in it because the battery's been bloating, and I haven't touched my Switch in a while because of that. I haven't touched Smash in a couple of months at this point. I still kind of play, but because of this, I don't want to like take any chances until I can get this fixed up. And because of that, I haven't been playing. But outside of that, I still watch every now and then though. How about you, dude? I don't have any background music to play. I don't even know how I would set that up. It's something for later. No more tourneys? Yeah, no more tourneys. Not a haven't been to a tourney in like shit. At least a year or two at this point. Yeah, no more tourneys, dude. I've moved on at this point. See my okay. I quit in 2018, barely came back a month ago. Don't plan on going back. Well, it's not the same. Yeah, it's really, really not the same. The scene hasn't been the same since since COVID. Actually, no. 2020 was the watershed year. That was the year when everything like it was all kind of leading up to 2020, but when 2020 hit, that was the definitive um that was the definitive schism moment in Smash history where after that Smash just wasn't the same. The community just wasn't the same, and especially when that was exacerbated by COVID and all the lockdowns and whatnot, and how having tournaments be online, I wasn't really about that. And then when they started coming back, I had moved, and it just didn't feel the same. I felt the same way you do, and I just stopped going. I started my mind has been going on other things, like what you're about to see in about 25 minutes. Uh, it's been quite the transformation, quite the eye-opening moment because I just look at what the community has become, and it's just I don't recognize it. I don't know practically anyone that's there still, aside from like a couple of people. Most of the guys that I would hang out with either don't go anymore and have moved on, or they still stream Smash like Larry, but he more or less just stays at home most of the time. Everyone has gone about their lives, so it hasn't been. Plus, the meta has progressed to a point where I don't really enjoy it, and so yeah, I haven't been going myself. Mm, 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 mm. How was the tournament that you went to? You said you went back about a month ago. What was it like? Let me reset that often comes up as Black pressed. Black people oppressed. Black people without opportunity to advance in society through education, career, entrepreneurship, and how people of color historically did not have as much opportunity as white folk. I would define it as racism on the level that is encouraged by the institution to favor one race or identity over another. In this case, legislation, national state, career, education, or policing / enforcement, or other criminal justice. I got top 8, but it felt like a parent teacher conference. That's not wrong. That's not a wrong way to look at it because of simply how babyified and how people these days can't seem to take any sort of criticism. And it's really tough to be able to trash talk because everybody gets offended so easily these days. It's just not fun. It's watered down. And because of that, it's not worth pursuing. It's just not fun. And they wonder why, like, viewing numbers have gone down, why the scene itself seems to have stagnated. It's like people these days don't understand what made the community fun. And they took away things that at the end of the day was just competition between competitors. Everybody is now forced to be nice and forced to be forced to get along. And it's like, that's not everybody has to get along, not everybody can get along, but we all came together to play Smash. But these days it's not really about playing Smash, it's about whether or not you feel good in the space that you're in, and that's not playing Smash at that point. 20 minutes. Get me wrong, I hated the Smash 4 era, but it wasn't this bad. No, you're right. Smash 4 was bad, but like the Smash 4 was bad, it just wasn't this bad. It sucks because it's like Smash 4 wasn't that bad, yet one could say that it was the precursor, or it was the patient zero to what we have today. Because a lot of what we're seeing now is just amplified of what happened during the Smash 4 era. It's just you had a whole bunch of people. There was still a bunch of people from that older age that outnumbered what was steadily growing as a trend back then more than there are now. And because those same people sort of just petered out and stepped away over as time went on, what replaced them was more of what you see today. But it was starting in Smash 4 because I noticed a lot of what's happening now is just what was sort of happening back in Smash 4, but it wasn't to the same prominent degree that it is now. And because of that, shit just deteriorated. And there were no checks. That was the thing. There were no checks for it to have its impact lessened, so to speak. That's not what I want to say, but that's along the same lines. And it just kept getting worse. And then 2020 happened and COVID happened and it just fell off a cliff. I don't think that it's even recoverable at this point. It certainly is not going to be recoverable to those that were used to the old days. Shit, man. Need to make sure that my opening statement is somewhat solid. You were treated better if you were white. Post-Civil Rights Act 1964 has essentially been legislated out that these inherent differences in opportunity continued. It's essentially been legislated out that these inherent differences in opportunity. It's been legislated out. Treated better if you were white. Post-civil rights, it's been legislated that these inherent. It's been legislated out that these differences. Post-Civil Rights Act 1964, these differences were essentially legislated with the culture following suit over the next decades. At that point, all resources opportunities became available to every American citizen from that day forth. Hire, fire, deny, based on creed, sex, orientation, race, national origin. We take time to get used to societally, but it's been codified. All this to say, everyone in America has the ability, opportunity, and potential drive to pursue any career field, entrepreneur, chance, employment, resource, job, etc. in the United States. Need to answer to, and I don't think he can, to any specificity. What can we not do? As Americans, as blacks, whites, Asians, etc. That someone of a race, typically white, can do. My own reasons for hating Smash 4 here, but I just remember going to that local a month ago and people looked at me like I was ancient because I told them I competed in I mean, at this point, you might as well be ancient. Came back playing from Brawl. Nobody from the scene has really seen you outside of like a couple of people, like Charlie, like Scott, who doesn't compete anymore either. Larry, who doesn't really go to locals that much. It's all like new kids and whatnot. Even though you're not much older than them, you played an ancient game. So I wouldn't be surprised that you come from a different era. So you getting called Unk is not surprising. It's probably one of the most apt descriptions for someone like you. I would wear that as a badge of honor. I haven't seen or spoken to Charlie or Larry since 2018. They're doing fine. I watch Larry's streams, and Larry is doing his own thing. I ran into Charlie at Anime Expo this past year. He's also doing fine. Actually, I still talk to Charlie occasionally. I just know that they're both doing fine right now. Charlie, more or less, has also quit Smash, by the way. He has a job, and he's living life as well. Things have changed. It's not the same community as it once was. And in fact, I wouldn't even recommend going back. Like, I know you went to a local a month ago, but like you said, you weren't planning on staying. Yeah, don't plan on staying because there's not much to. No, excuse me. There's not much to see at this point. It's really just like Steve's, Kazuya. We have a K rule in this region. I remember we've got a few characters, but it's mostly just like it's whatever. It's whatever, and whenever Spargo or MK Leo decide to drop into the region every now and then. But other than that, it's really there's nothing to see at this point. Yeah, this is good. I needed to kind of just speak a little bit to get the jitters out because this is gonna be a friendly conversation. Thing I noticed though, it was a lot earlier to get top 8 now than it was back then. How much earlier? I don't. I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with what's changed. Oh, easier. Yeah, because a lot of the good players that would be gatekeeping top 8 aren't there anymore. And what's left is just worse people, so to speak. Worse people because you know how the US is, you know how Americans are. They do not like to practice. They do not like to lab. They say they like to lab, but really it's just come to a local and smash buttons all day. They don't really go in to try and learn characters or learn matchups these days. It's all if I can't it's all if I don't top 8 or if I don't win, then I then I just lose mentality when it comes to Americans. And because of that, uh, there's no sense of camaraderie. Like I said, the focus has shifted away from the game itself and more so on how do I feel? How do I like feel with people in this day and age, in this space and whatnot? It's a complete mind shift, and I don't like it. A lot easier to get top 8. I'm not surprised. A lot of the heavy gatekeepers in this region don't play anymore. A lot of the people that defined Southern Cal SoCal the SoCal Smash scene just aren't here anymore. They don't play. How would I share this? Oh, that's not what I want. Nope. Don't do that. Smash retirement home do be nice though. It allows one to actually enjoy life for what it is rather than be rather than be stressed that the next opponent that you face is like a Kazuya or a Minecraft Steve. Oh. Go away, chat. Don't want you, chat. It allows all of us to kind of just chill at this point, which is nice. I'm not gonna look at chat. I don't need to look at chat. I don't need to look at chat for this. It's Spurgs out. Everyone in America has the ability, opportunity, and potential drive to pursue any career, field, entrepreneur, chance, employment, resource, job, etc. in the United States. point we need to answer to, and I don't think he can to any specificity. What can we not do as Americans, as Black Americans, white Americans, Asian Americans, that someone else of a different race or ethnicity can do? What is left within the system to solve for this systemic racism? It is a problem, after all, and problems need to be solved. If you cannot categorically solve this problem or lessen it to the point it becomes a non-issue, why continue to fight? We'll see if that works out. I mean, we'll see. I got sources, got my argument tree. I can't. At the end of the day, this is a conversation. It's a conversation in which I'm trying to get my point across, and I will come out on top. All I can do is the best I can do. And that's where we are. All I can do is the best I can do. So oh my god. Oh, these nerves, man. These nerves. I hate being nervous. I really do. I hate being nervous, man. Stream this to my audience. Oh, is that? Huh. Titles required on YouTube. Oh, okay. No, I don't think I need to do that. I don't think I'll need to do that. I just have my own stream up and show comments on stage. Nah, I don't need to do that. But it's good to see you. It's good to see you, Mr. KY. It is good to see you. For the next 5 minutes, I guess, at this point, I'm going to go entirely into debate mode. So I will see you, or I'll see you around. If you stick around or go to the link and want to watch the debate, you can. But other than that, I'll see you afterward, man. So I will turn off chat for now. The silence is deafening, man. Opening statement. When one defines systemic racism, what often comes up is Black people oppressed. Black people without opportunity to advance in society through education, career, entrepreneurship, and how people of color historically did not have as much opportunity as white folk. I would define it as racism on the level that is encouraged by the institution to favor one race/ethnicity over another. In this case, it would be under legislation, national state, career, education, policing, and slash enforcement. Pre-1964, the gatekeepers to almost all forms of influence and power in the United States were white people because, well, they are the majority ethnicity in the country and they helped build the nation to what it is today. You were treated better if you were white. Post-Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Civil Rights Movement that had preceded it, these differences were essentially legislated out, with the culture following suit over the next 3 decades. Point: all resources, opportunities, etc. became available to every American. All resources, opportunities, places of business, what have you, were available to every American citizen from that day forth. It did not matter what you looked like, did not matter where you came from, did not matter who you were or what, race or ethnicity you were, you could partake in all things that is the United States of America under the US Constitution. It would take time. You could not hire, fire, deny based on hire, fire, deny, etc. based on. We take time to get used to society, but it's been codified. And then over the next couple of decades, through education, through schooling, public school, private school, you're all told at this point not to look at each other as fuck it, man. How would I share the screen?
What's up, guys?
Yo, yo, how you doing? Hold on, I need to switch over to my
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It's not on. That's not on you. I'm just. I'm streaming from my end, and so I am. I was. I what you were on my TV. You were on my monitor, and then now you're in my headphones. So yeah. Yeah, Tomahawk PWPT would be on Twitch, and then I also have a at Senior Missile Monkey here on YouTube. So far, I would say it's Twitch, but I don't really have too much. I haven't really been streaming all that much. I streamed a couple of times, but I don't really have anything at the moment. I'm slowly building up. I'm building up. I know, yes, it is. So, needless to say, I am nervous, and I spent the last 40 minutes getting the nerves out. I don't know if people heard that or not, but that was nice for me. You can never truly get rid of the nerves. So yeah, yeah. As we go through it, as the debate goes on, as the conversation goes on, I'll that'll slowly like fall away and whatnot. But in these before times, once we get into it, I'll feel better. But this preliminary session can never truly get over the stage fright before the act. Yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, I'm good, bro. I the only thing I'm just a little unclear on just on my end is how I would share this not the link, not the debate itself, but like share on my screen. Would I be sharing like the Yeah, I'm on StreamYards at least for I'm on StreamYard right now. And do I share the debate like the actual live stream, or do I share like the stream here? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. It won't show like a double of me. Actually, no, it won't because I'll just take myself out. That's what it is. Well, not what I mean, but not what I mean. This is for on my side at least. I have I'm currently seeing myself triple. That's what it is. You guys, you know what? Forget this.
Yeah, it's quick. It's quick. Listen to me quick. You're using Chrome tabs, right, too?
Actually DuckDuckGo, but they're similar.
Yeah, but it won't pick up the sound if you're not using well, you can still do the sound if you have a certain setting.
I'm sorry, not DuckDuckGo, Opera.
All right. Do you have Google Chrome tabs or no?
It's a DuckDuckGo browser. I didn't even know that.
Opera? Like Opera GX and whatnot?
No,
I know what Opera is. I'm saying I didn't know DuckDuckGo had a browser.
That's what I use on my phone.
Yeah. All right, so listen, what you're gonna do is hit present, right? Okay, when you hit present, you go to share screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So your options there, you have 3 options. Well, maybe it doesn't show you, just shows you window and entire screen.
Oh, it says Opera tab, which is basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That'll probably work then. Okay, so you'll see the StreamYard.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it says also share tab audio as well. Okay, gotcha. Yes, it is now added to my stage, and yes, yeah. The maximize? Ah, got it. Yeah, it's now full screen it's now full screen on the thing.
Okay, but are you still on your stream?
Yeah, I'm still on my stream.
Like it shows you.
It shows me twice currently.
Okay, so now in that StreamYard, the other StreamYard,
yes,
in your shared screen, hit the little box in the top left corner, so it only shares that, but your audio will still be heard over there.
Oh, I see it. Okay, got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I hit the box, and now
okay.
I'm not shown as double on my stream now.
Perfect. You just see what we got here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Perfect. You got it, man. You got it.
Much
Don't worry. I'm done with technology, so I'm able to explain it to somebody else who doesn't understand too.
Hey, I appreciate it, dude. I appreciate it.
All right. So okay, and again, the intro, it's just going to be my disclaimer, the song and intro, then I'll introduce the show, the prompt, you guys, and then we'll get into openings. First Amender, you're on the positive side, so we'll let you open first. And then when we do closings, we'll let you go first again, and that gives Tomahawk the last word.
Sounds good.
Good. All right. And again, thank you both for being here, and good luck to you both, gentlemen. Let's get this rocking and rolling.
Warning. The information shared in these conversations and videos are intended for general knowledge and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered as legal advice or professional guidance. Additionally, any documentation or references to specific content are solely for the purpose of discussion and understanding. It does not imply endorsement, promotion, or support of said content. The views expressed in these videos and/or conversation are those of the individuals involved and do not represent any official stance or opinion. The content you are about to experience may contain strong language, including explicit words and phrases. This language is used for artistic expression and may be integral to the storyline or character development. It is important to note that the use of such language does not endorse or promote offensive behavior. Viewer discretion is advised, and please enjoy the show responsibly. Disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. The Canadian Copyright Act, Section 29, allows an individual to use copyright-protected materials when creating a new work, such as a mashup, and to post the new work online on a site like YouTube. Fair dealing provision for specific purposes like research, private study, education, parody, satire, criticism, review, and news reporting.
Step up, step up. Yeah, we clash. We clash. We clash. We clash. Yeah. Step in the arena, mind locked and loaded. Truth on my blade, every line's exploded. You swing your words, I counter with precision. Battle of reason, this is my mission. Raise your fist, let them know. No, raise your voice, let it blow. Woo! We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. Step back, I'm a scholar and a fighter. Every claim you throw, I strike tighter. Logic and power, I never fold. In the war of words, I'm solid gold. Raise your fist, let them know. Whoa. Raise your voice, let it blow. Woo. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. Every thought a fortress, every claim a storm. We forge a truth where chaos takes form. Ideas ignite like lightning through the night. In the war of minds, we bring the light. Step in, feel the heat. Truth is my weapon, never beat. Raise them high, break the ceiling. With a fire, with a feeling. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreat. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason.
Welcome everybody to Swords of Reason right here on the Speakeasy Show, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And this is where logic meets passion. If you're new here, the format is simple. Each debater gets 10 minutes for their opening statement, followed by 5 minutes of uninterrupted rebuttals. After that, we'll enter the arena for a full hour of back and forth debate. This is where they can, the iron will sharpen the iron, you know. And finally, each side delivers 5-minute closing statements to lock in their case. And when that's done, we move into the 30-minute Q&A. I'll drop a Q&A in the chat for all of you to ask a question for the debaters. But keep in mind that the Super Chats, PayPals, and Cash Apps questions, they do get priority. And if those fill up the entire 30 minutes, the free chat questions may not get answered. So if there's something you want guaranteed to be asked, take one of the priority options. And once the formal debate wraps up, we open the doors for a chaos and chill panel. This is where the community can hop in, challenge the debaters, ask follow-ups. But this is if the debaters choose to stick around, because that part is optional for them. This is where things usually get a little wild, of course. And today's debate prompt, does systemic racism exist in the United States? And today's debaters on the affirmative tonight, we have the First Amender, known for his hot news discussions, political debates, and his Debate a Woke Liberal call-in show that he does right here on YouTube. You can find his channel linked in the description below. And on the negative, we have Tomahawk, new to the Swords of Reason arena and making his debut in formal debates tonight. His channel is also linked in the description, and with your support and subscriptions, I'm sure he'll be bringing us plenty more content in the future. So make sure you guys go show him some love as he steps in the ring for the first time. All right. With that all being said, we'll move right into opening statements. First Amender, you're going to be first. So whenever you are ready, I will start the timer up with your voice. And again, thank you both for being here tonight.
All right. I actually have a slide here that's ready to go, so I'm going to be sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Share screen. Share screen. Hold on, just give me a second.
Yep.
Share. You should be able to see it. I think you have to present it on your side there,
Yep.
Speakeasy. So the question is, does systemic racism exist? A debate with First Amender. And you can find me on youtube.com/@FirstAmender. You could check out my channel and consider a subscribe. What is systemic racism? Systemic racism are racial disparities that are produced and maintained by institutions, laws, and policies and social systems, even when nobody is intending to discriminate. It's all about outcomes. Intent does not matter. Imagine that there is a system built decades ago with openly racist rules. Even if you remove the racist language later, the effects can still persist. Example, race was barred from owning property in certain areas, such as HOA restricting minorities in predominantly white neighborhoods, as well as redlining laws. Property ownership is the main way that wealth is accumulated. Wealth determines the school, the neighborhoods, the credit, as well as political power. The detail. Redlining occurred nationwide. Redlining is the practice of denying people access to credit because of where they live, even if that they are personally qualified for loans. Historically, mortgage lenders once widely redlined core urban neighborhoods and black-populated neighborhoods in particular. The 1968 Fair Housing Act outlawed racially motivated redlining and tasked federal financial regulators, including the Federal Reserve, with enforcement. Redlining was found even after it was banned formally in 1968. Example, 50 years after being outlawed, redlining still drives neighborhood health inequities. Discriminatory lending practice continues to have serious effects. This is from the University of Berkeley of Public Health. Decades of redlining, a long-standing banking practice that blocked people out of color from getting mortgages, continue to perpetuate racial and socioeconomic inequality in the San Francisco Bay Area and across the country, according to ongoing research from UC Berkeley School of Public Health. Redlining exists and existed, but so what? Well, education. The school you went to from K through 12 is associated with the district that you grew up in. A majority of funding for K through 12 public schools overwhelmingly comes from local property taxes. In 2021 school year, around 44.1% of public school funding came from states. The total funding of the source per student, you could observe local and state, is overwhelming majority of where funding comes from, which means a majority of your funding is in fact property taxes. Education continued. Schools are funded through property taxes, and property taxes are garnered based on a percentage of the total value of the home appraised by the government, often lower than its actual perceived market value. If a property tax is, say, 4%, one house is worth $125,000 versus a home worth $1.2 million. That is a huge difference in how much funding is allocated. $48,000 in yearly property tax versus $5,000 in a poorer district. This means poorer districts fundamentally receive less money, and therefore worse education depending on the zip code that they are born in. The impact of redlining. Poor K-12 education means minorities often underperform in terms of educational attainment. Why? Because opportunity was removed from them at the time of birth. No racist actor is required. Ask yourself this. When you visit your Rosa Parks Drives and your Martin Luther King Avenues across the country, not in 1969, but today, do you see an overwhelming amount of proportionate population to U.S. statistics? Or is it overwhelmingly minority somehow situated in that location? What do you think the cause of that is? Ergo, if what I said is true, then systemic racism exists. And syllogistically, the definition of systemic racism exists if and only if a social system contains race-based rules or inherited structures that predictably produce racial disparities in outcomes independent of individual intent. Premise 1. Any system whose rules or inherited structures predictably produce racial disparities in outcomes independent of individual intent is systemically racist. The U.S. housing and education system contains inherited structures originating in redlining that predictably produce racial disparities in educational outcomes independent of individual intent. Conclusion, therefore, systemic racism exists in the United States. Thank you. And you can follow me at youtube.com/@FirstAmender.
All right. You still had 5 minutes. Is that all you wanted to do there?
That's it. That's all I
All
needed.
right. Thank you for that opening statement. And with that, we are going to hand the mic over to Tomahawk. And Tomahawk, whenever you are ready for your opening statement, I will start the timer up with your voice.
All right. When one defines systemic racism, what often comes up is Black people oppressed, Black people without the opportunity to advance in society through education, career, or entrepreneurship, and how people of color historically did not have as much opportunity as white folk. My opponent brought up redlining. My opponent brings up the fact that property taxes are the ones that fund schools, but usually when you talk about when talking about redlining like that, when talking about property taxes, it doesn't take into account those that escaped, those that those people who, even though they may come from those worse off towns, but they hardened themselves and they brought up they through adversity they were able to move out of those bad, quote unquote, bad towns, those red line towns, into better neighborhoods, and then were able to still take part in those same resources and opportunities given to them by the better property counterparts. The opportunities are there. And I would define it as racist. I would personally define it as racism on the level that is encouraged by the institution to favor one race or ethnicity over another, similar to what my opponent brought up in terms of, you were born in it, so to speak. In this case, it would be like legislation, national through state, career, education, policing / enforcement. Pre-1964, the gatekeepers to almost all of the forms of influence and power in the United States were white people because, well, they were the majority ethnicity. They are still the majority ethnicity. Therefore, they're going to be able to, through their country and their settlers, they helped build the nation that we have today. You were treated better if you were white because, well, that was normal. That was considered normal, and through slaves and through redlining and stuff, through slaves and the slavery and whatnot, you had the fact that those minorities would come into American society as a quote unquote lower class because they were not given the opportunity to essentially show what they could do. Post the Civil Rights Act of 1964, these differences were essentially legislated out, with the culture following suit over the next 3 decades through education. And through education, at that point, all resources, opportunities, places of business, entrepreneurship, I became open to all citizens through the 14th Amendment, Brown versus Board of Education, which all culminated into the Civil Rights Act of 1964. At that point, all resources, opportunities based on creed became available to every American citizen from that day forth. You could not hire, fire, deny based on creed, sex, orientation, or race, or national origin. It would take time to get used to, as was the friction that was caused right after the passing of that law. But at that point, it's been codified, and then through those next 3 decades of education, of telling basically the populace, hey, your neighbor is the same as you under the U.S. Constitution. U.S. Constitution, it would smooth out over time. All this to say, everyone in America has the ability, the opportunity, the potential drive to pursue any career field, entrepreneur chance, employment, resource, job, etc. in the United States. Redlining, in that sense, is not a real viable stopping point, because even with its banning, and sure, you may have effects of it, but that's really up to the fact that he did mention education, but that's just it. If you learn that you have the opportunity, you have the ability to go set out for yourself and be better, which is where this whole thing comes from in terms of systemic racism, and telling basically an entire populace that they can't do more with themselves because of subjective at this point subjective effects of past deeds. The fact that at this point they can that is the main point of contention when talking about whether or not systemic racism exists. When you tell an entire populace that they can do something and you encourage them to go forth and at least attempt it, you can't really call in systemic racism when not only can they do it, but a lot of them have done it. You have many examples. You have Clarence Thomas, you have Jasmine Crockett, you have all of these. Those are just two examples of people who, in a sense, have made it. They came from essentially, and those people came from either the slums or I think Ben Carson's case. I'm not too sure on that. However, they are all very well renowned and very well educated people. So even though you have a population that still is in the ghettos, there's other reasons for why that still is the case for at least those bunch of people. How would my opponent reconcile with the fact that you have a whole bunch of very well educated black people and very well educated minorities, especially in the Asian community, that came in from slums, came in through the slums, through being treated as less than, and then came up to be one of the premier minority groups in America. Everyone in America had the ability to advance, has the ability to take resources and be able to collect within themselves and be able to collect for their own. What my opponent would need to answer to, and I don't think he can, to any real specificity other than talking about redlining, which can be explained away through the fact that there are a whole bunch of people from those same communities that thought to themselves, even I learned that I still have all of these opportunities, these tools. I can still make something for myself. I can still make something for the people around me. And I would be determined to go forth and make a name for myself. That's why you have so far my examples come from people who have made it to positions of power. Your Clarence Thomases, your Baron Donalds, your Ben Carsons, Jasmine Crockett, Barack Obama being the pinnacle of this whole. You have the opportunity. You were given the opportunity. You now, and therefore you can make it. The fact that we have that things like Barack Obama's election into being the president in 2008 meant that we can do anything. We have the opportunity to. All of the tools are there at our disposal. We just need to use it. And what continues to happen is that, especially with people on the left, we're just told, oh, just from birth that you can't do it. Just from birth, it's pretty much set in stone. When that's not the case. It was the case before, in pre 1964, but after the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, basically telling everyone that you can make it in America. It doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter where you came from, you can make it. All that's left is simply knowing how you can make it. And that's where institutions, and particularly on the left, tend to falter and tend to keep that information away from black people. Systemic racism couldn't really exist when everyone today now has the opportunity to succeed, now has the means of which to succeed for themselves. They just need to go out there and take it. The right encourages this. They say, we will give you the tools. We teach you how these things work. We teach you the way that in which you are able to do so. Whereas the left does not give you those tools. They just say, well, you just can't do it. Through things like redlining, because you live in a poorer town, you just can't do it. When the whole point of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is to tell you categorically that you can. I'm going to end off saying, like, So this is systemic racism. If it were to be a real problem in today's day and age, it's a problem. Therefore, it's a problem that needs to be solved. And if you can't categorically solve this problem or lessen it to the point where it becomes a non-issue, why continue to fight? Why continue to bring it up as a point of issue, if not to gain something from it, from the fact that of the issue itself and what it causes? For that, I yield my time.
All righty. Thank you for that opening statement, Tomahawk. And that will wrap up the opening statements from both sides. We're going to move into the rebuttal here. Each debater has 5 minutes uninterrupted, so no interjections or nothing. And then after that, we'll get into open floor. So we're going to hand the mic back over here to First Amender. And First Amender, whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
I'm ready. For starters, you said that it does not take into account those that escaped. It does. It just generally means that minorities did suffer as a result. This does not mean that there are not black people that could not get a leg up. There certainly could. It's entirely possible. We know this to be a fact. The fact is, though, that minorities have had, in fact, lower educational attainment and higher household income, or lower household income being a good example of that. Black people historically, and even to this day, have lower household income, which means that there's less money that goes towards higher education. You were treated better. You stated you were treated better if you were white because that was normal. Okay, so if you acknowledge that, that would actually mean that you are agreeing that there were systems that cause rippling effects of racism, right? And then you stated you can't hire and fire based on race. That's wrong. You 100% can. Just because you cannot list the formal reason of firing somebody, you do not have to list that it is because of race. You could simply cite something such as poor work performance, and that is sufficient and totally allowed, but the underlying predicate could absolutely be a racial one. You then stated that you can get any job or education that you like. Well, that's somewhat true, but also not necessarily true. If you do not have the money, for example, you're rather limited in what specific education you can get or job that you would be able to attain. If people have poorer socioeconomic status, this would reduce a person's ability to succeed compared to white counterparts. This does not mean black people cannot succeed, but rather that there does exist a systemic issue that pushes others down. And I can prove that through redlining. When you tell you stated, when you tell a population that they can do something, then you can't call against systemic racism. I once again am going to say that you can, I agree that you can do something and it is totally possible to succeed. This does not, however, dismantle whether or not that systemic racism does exist. It does. You then stated there are other reasons as to why somebody would be in the ghetto. And my answer is yes. And sometimes it is also because of systemic racism. I am not saying someone who grew up in a poor area couldn't help themselves. They certainly can, but that does not mean it does not exist. I love that you brought up as an example Clarence Thomas as being successful. I want to let you know that Clarence Thomas, and you should look up the history of Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is the ultimate DEI hire. Systemic racism did exist in that there were no black students allowed in Yale. In fact, in any Ivy League school were black students allowed, enabling someone access to an Ivy League school. But when black people were then included in Ivy League schools, Clarence Thomas was one of the first. If it were not for pushing back against systemic racism, Clarence Thomas would likely have not have been a Supreme Court judge, as having not been in an Ivy League school due to systemic racism. And you said it does not matter what you look like, you can make it. I agree, and I think that that's a great air of mentality to have. This, however, does not combat as to whether or not systemic racism or systemic systems that push minorities down do not exist. They certainly do. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you for that rebuttal. And with that, we're going to hand the mic over to Tomahawk. Tomahawk, whenever you're ready for your uninterrupted rebuttal, I will start the timer up with your voice.
it was a lot to see there, but in your rebuttal, you say that even though even though minorities did suffer, um, just because minorities still suffer, there are reasons such as the crack epidemic that came through in the 1970s, as well as welfare systems that were previously not previously that were that were introduced to help out poor folk in trying in getting them, but that's an entirely separate issue. um you can't really say that even if you don't have money isn't racial. Not having the money isn't racial in the sense that there are many poor communities and people who may not be able to advance themselves because they don't have money. That's not a racial problem. That is a people that is a wealth inequality, and wealth inequality by itself is not racial. There are poor areas all over the country where people of all types, of all races, are not able to advance themselves because of through no fault of their own. And you say Clarence Thomas was the ultimate DEI hire because at the time it was part of that friction post the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where where it was slow for the culture to catch up to what the spirit of the Civil Rights Act was attempting to do. With desegregation, it was landmark because he was the first. He set the stage for many other black judges to come up through the system. He was simply the first, just like Barack Obama was the first black man to be elected president. And through his, he may have been the first one to get there, but he's since then proved himself to be one of the premier justices that we have had in this country. You want to talk about who's a real DEI hire? We can bring up Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was appointed during the Biden administration, and we can tell just based on the differences between her dissensions and Clarence Thomas's dissensions, and Clarence Thomas's comments, who truly is the DEI hire, based on the fact that almost every single time that Ketanji Brown Jackson would bring up some dissension, it was only lodged in, not the word is escaping, I don't have the right word, but she only talked about race. She only brought up the fact that it was just someone was being disadvantaged somewhere, whereas Clarence Thomas would talk about how what was being argued against or argued for was what it meant for the actual constitution, how it would apply. That's not a racial thing. If anything, the DEI hire at this point would be Ketanji Brown Jackson. And I don't really have any, but poor areas, everybody has, the thing about everybody having a shot, and the systems at play. Sure, you can come up with any sort of reason for why something, and the underlying may be racial. However, at that point, you would be looking at more individual cases and how that would not be systemic, because at this point, it wouldn't be what am I looking for? You'd have to go on a case by case basis at that point. And with that, we'll just go into open panel because I'm not really good with these rebuttals here. Not yet.
No
at least.
worries. Thank you. Thank you for that rebuttal and great rebuttals from both sides. Before we move into the open hour of back and forth, let me talk to the audience real quick. If you're watching right now, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to both the debaters. Okay, their links are in the description, and we host all kinds of debates here on Swords of Reason, politics, culture, ethics, internet topics that just come up. We even debate video games here. So if you're enjoying it, make sure you subscribe. Also, a reminder for the live chat: after the closing statements, we'll be doing a 30-minute Q&A. So the Q&A is already there if you guys want to put your questions in. But remember, super chats, PayPals, Cash Apps, these things do get priority, and if it fills up the whole 30 minutes, we may not get to the live Q&A in the chat. So if you really want something answered, send it through one of the priority options, and we'll make sure it gets passed. And finally, thank you again to both the debaters for being here tonight and bringing your perspectives to the arena. Whenever one of you are ready to start up the open hour here, I will start the clock with your voice. And again, thank you both.
Tomahawk,
Yeah.
I agree with you that it's possible for somebody to succeed against all odds, right? And in fact, I encourage that kind of thought process. I think it is important to be like, hey, I can do it. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Okay. But that doesn't rebut whether or not that there are systems that were designed or that exist today that pushed down minorities, right?
What? I guess I would ask at this point, what system would it be that you would be talking about?
So I brought up as an example redlining laws of the past. I understand redlining is illegal now. However, the rippling effects of redlining are pervasive even to this day. And the fact is, right now, there don't actually exist any redistributive laws in rich and affluent areas, putting their property taxes towards their local education. I think there's only 3 states that have a progressive system for that, where they have distributive laws. A majority of states still, the entire education system is funded off of property taxes and so if whatever the value of the houses in that local location will be, that's how much money actually gets raised to those schools. And so if the value of the houses are lower, that would mean people that grow up in specific zip codes would live a fundamentally worse off education all the way from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. Don't you think that would negatively impact your educational attainment?
It could, but would that stop you? Would that stop a particular family who happens to live in that area from sending their child out to a different area at that point, a different school that would potentially be of higher standing, as it were? Because I could see, because I've seen there are plenty of families, there are plenty of schools that accept people from poorer areas that have those sort of progressive policies baked into them, where they have the resources and then extend programs that would extend their that would extend their acceptances, so to speak. That's not the word I want, but that would extend acceptances to people of poorer areas, to kids of poorer areas, to give them that education, to give them that opportunity. So one could say redlining has an effect. One could say redlining has an effect, but it doesn't really have an effect at that point when there are plenty of schools that extend their resources, that extend their enrollment. That's the word, enrollment to people of poorer areas.
What you're talking about right now is literally DEI. Are you in favor of DEI?
No, that's not DEI.
That's literally what DEI is. But beside that point, you said that it could. Redlining could do that. I mean, it doesn't take a brainiac to realize places of poorer socioeconomic status The house values are lower, right?
Sure, but what would that
Which
have to
means
do?
that
What,
there's less money that goes to the schools from K through 12 education, right?
where's the race in that though? Where would the race? That's just you're just describing
You
poor
don't need
areas.
to, it requires zero racist actors. I'm
So-
just explaining to you the system on how that happens.
But
I'm not
that-
saying
but
black
with
people can't get
the prompt
ahead.
itself is systemic
I'm not
racism.
sa-
If the
Yeah, the
systems
question is
themselves-
whether
if
or
the
not
system itself
systemic-
is only goes against what essentially is just poor neighborhoods. That has nothing to do, like you said, it has nothing to do with race. At that point,
But you
it's
understand
not-
that
it's not-
minorities
it's
were
a-
physically pushed to these locations in the past. And when you go
the
to
past-
poor
in the past.
socioeconomic conditions areas throughout the country in the United States, it's overwhelmingly minorities.
But again, that was in the past.
In
The-
2025, that's the case.
where does that say in 2025 at this point?
What
Where-
I'm
'cause
saying, if you look at places that have poor socioeconomic condition status,
which
it is
which
overwhelmingly
includes black
minorities
and white,
throughout the United
which includes
States.
black and white,
but it's
communities.
overwhelmingly black.
But it's still white communities that suffer from the same thing, which is why we have
That's not a rebuttal.
opportunity zones.
That's not a
Mhm.
rebuttal.
Yeah,
You're
it
you're
is.
acknowledging that it does exist,
But
and then you're saying, but also this other thing. You're
Mm.
not debunking the clear systemic racism there. You're just saying, but also this thing.
you said poor neighbor. The premise behind your argument is that it affects poorer neighborhoods. Poor
Yes.
isn't black. It's just poor. You don't
Okay,
go
so
for
if I showed you that black families fundamentally are poorer
how would they
than
be
white families by like a long shot, you would concede this argument knowing that predominantly black people have been pushed down in society.
in the past? Sure, but you
No,
can't
20
really say,
no, not in the past. 2025.
you would need
Currently
to,
right now black families have a lot less money than white families. Period.
but it doesn't. I wouldn't say that.
Why do you think that is then?
Hmm?
Why do you think that is? I think it's because of systemic racism of the past. Redlining laws that reduce equity stake. When you have lower value houses, you can't actually, and the fact that they have been denied loans throughout the 60s and even upwards into the 70s. And even today, where we exhibit racist policies, even upwards into 2025, where banks are being caught discriminating against minorities because they considered loans to be too high risk simply for their skin color. That would be an example of systemic racism. So I'm asking you,
But
why do you think that black families are poorer on average than white families?
They shoot. Should be a slam dunk, but they were that has nothing to do with the fact that you can still that poor areas don't just contain black people. There are still those
That
same
wasn't an answer to my question.
right, but that's not when your argument is talking about the fact that poorer areas are affected by these redlining policies. It doesn't matter whether or not that it happens to be black or happens to overwhelmingly be black or anything. If you come from a poor neighborhood and it shows on the map that you came from a poor neighborhood, a banker can look at that data and determine whether or not you would be a safe investment for you to get a loan from. Whites are denied in much of this. Whites would be denied in a similar situation as a black person
So I'm not
would
saying
at
that
point.
white families can't be denied a loan. I'm not
if they
saying
come
that
from a poor
there
area,
aren't
they
poor
would
white.
be looked
I'm
at.
not.
They
Yeah,
would be
I'm
looked
not
at
saying that there aren't
similarly as
poor
a
white
black
families.
family in that sense. So
I agree
it's
with
not.
you.
It
I'm
has
not
nothing
saying
to
that there
do
aren't
with.
poor white family or rich black families. That both of those exist. The question is not whether or not that there are poor black or rich black families as a rebuttal, or if there are poor white families. The question is whether or not that there exist systemic inequities, systemic racism, as in systems that result in racist outcomes in the United States. Given the fact, I mean, I still don't have an answer to why is it that why are black families poorer than white families by like a long shot in the
That's
United
not.
States?
I wouldn't consider that to be a question that pertains to the topic at hand, because the system itself that you're describing affects poor areas, affects poor people, and poor people come in many different races. And you want to talk about you want to mention redlining, but if it only is it adversely affects if it only adversely affects poorer people, there are poor people of any race. And so you can't exactly say that as a system that would disproportionately affect black people, when in this day and age anyone with bad credit or anyone that comes from a poor area will simply be denied on the basis of the fact that they come from a poor area and they can't be trusted to be able to pay back the money that the bank is loaning them. So you can't use redlining as an excuse in the sense that, there's happens to be more black people that live in these poorer neighborhoods. Anyone of a poor neighborhood would simply be denied a loan because they can't be trusted to pay back the loan that the bank would be giving them. And so it's not really.
Why can't they be trusted to pay back the loan?
Because they're poor. Because they're poor and they don't have the capacity.
And why are they
really,
poor?
Hmm?
And why are they poor?
They don't have the money at that point. It's not.
Why are they poor?
They don't have. Why are they poor? Because
why don't they have the money?
Because they're poor. They're poor. I don't know what else to say. They're poor people, so they don't have the money to be able to. They don't have the capital. They don't have the capital. They don't have the wealth to be able to show to a bank with a history of paying back loans that they are able to pay back loans. That's not a racism thing. That's just a system. That's not a racism thing.
Let me ask you this: is Brookings.edu a valid source to you?
I don't know what that is.
It's here. I'll pull it up. What is Brookings.edu? Give me a moment. It is a website for the Brookings Institution, a highly influential, independent, nonpartisan American think tank in Washington, D.C. that conducts research on, provides analysis for public policy and economics, governance, and foreign policy, and improve government and policy at a local, national, and global levels. It was founded in 1916, and it is known for its rigorous, evidence-based work, bridging scholarship and policy making and by offering practical solutions and insights on complex challenges, serving a key resource on decision makers and the public. So I'm asking you, is Brookings.edu a valid source to you?
I mean, it could be, but what does that have to do with what does that have to do with what we're talking about?
Give me a moment. I also have to share it on my own. Give me a moment. Where's my Chrome?
It'll just depend.
It'll
just depend on what. Okay.
All right. Hold on. Just give me a quick second. I apologize. Even when Black people have advanced degrees, own their home, have high-paying jobs, and engage in other behaviors associated with asset building, their wealth is typically much lower than their white peers. Individual level factors are simply not the explanation for difference in the economic fortunes of Black and white people. Instead, the racial wealth gap should be recognized as a consequence of discrimination, public and private, throughout American history and continuing to this day. Nearly 250 years of slavery were followed by a century of Jim Crow segregation and economic exploitation education reinforced by state-sanctioned violence. Until the 20th century, Black people were excluded from public programs to educate in home ownership and higher education. Racial inequality persists in our contemporary, putatively colorblind system. Due to discrimination, Black people receive lower valuations on their homes and earn less money in comparison to white people performing the same work. Biases in public investment and criminal justice leave Black communities simultaneously underserved and over-policed, and these civil rights violations also have serious economic consequences. Black people in America have been systemically stripped of the wealth that they have produced. Only a transformative national agenda can address the racial wealth gap, because the disparity of the project of societal racism compounded over generations. This is the Brookings.edu providing you this information. Do you find this to be adequate?
Where would I would need to see like what actual data that they have that they would be saying that, because that sounds like an editorial. That sounds like an editorial or an opinion piece that basically is a summary of something that they made. Something that
I
they may
posted the
have
link.
found.
The research is referring to closing the racial wealth gap requiring heavy progressive taxation of wealth. And so I once again, like, I know why that there exists a substantial wealth difference between white and Black families. And the reason why is because of systemic racism. And it is pervasive even to this day, considering that Black families fundamentally have lower wealth than that of their white family counterparts. It makes sense because throughout the 20th century, whites were able to establish themselves a semblance of security, being able to establish their own homes, which means to build up equity, which increases their overall wealth. And it was that was not the case for Black Americans in the United States. So I know what causes the increase in wealth. I mean, imagine if you had, say, $20,000 lying around for you to go to college, as opposed to most Black Americans, which did not receive that in order to go to college. But that's actually relatively common among their white counterparts.
How would you be able to show the fact that these quote unquote white neighborhoods receive these sort of $20,000 handouts? And I also
no, I'm saying like when you have like your equity taken care of, you have a high equity. You often spend time, will save your money, and you're able to, say, invest your money into stocks or be able to grow your wealth even further. Whereas Black people were systemically pushed down and prevented being able to own homes, and then forced and pushed into areas that of low socioeconomic status, fundamentally all throughout the 20th century. It doesn't surprise me that white people tend to have more generational wealth than that of their Black counterparts. I mean, that's true.
I wish I through what means would these sort of systems be showcased that just because Black people are basically who they are, they all of a sudden they're not able to get the resources necessary, even though you have
it's not because of who they are. I think Black people are perfectly capable of investing and purchasing homes if given the chance. But I don't believe that they have been given, not throughout the 20th century, they were not. Throughout the 20th century, they were not. And so I'm glad that we're now in the 21st century where now we have that opportunity. But the point is that they have a lower socioeconomic status that exists. It is pervasive even to this day. That would be an example of systemic racism. This is why I argue in favor of DEI policies, for example. But I mean, you have to acknowledge that this exists.
You would have to, for that to exist, for these things to have taken hold, you're basically the solutions that you're saying, that you're talking about, is basically just taking from the rich, giving to the poor. But it's like for DEI to take hold in that way, you're not really giving black people a chance to a real chance to give them any sort of opportunity, the opportunity to do so. You're giving them handouts, which doesn't teach them how to better themselves. You have things like what they called Black Wall Street back in the, I want to say, the 40s or 50s. I don't remember exactly.
Which was burned down by white people.
And why? And you had Jews that would have
White
their
people
shit
burned
You
it
had
down,
Jews-
didn't they?
Hmm?
They didn't like that black people were making money, and so they burned it down to the ground.
So and
White
and
people did that.
Yeah, white people did that, but you had, and I would say to that end, there were other ethnicities that went through similar purges, and yet they built themselves back up. You have
I'm not
Asians,
saying that
you
black
have
people aren't
Asians
perfectly
you have Asians being
capable.
the most, even
Yeah.
being more wealthy than blacks, and yet they're A, not targeted, B, still
They
are
weren't
prolific,
targeted at the same level of black people.
and yet
But
they are still thriving.
Just to point
and
out,
yet
right?
they're still thriving. So
Yeah, they weren't targeted as bad as black people. So
But
yes,
they-
they
but-
thrive better than black people. But regardless of the fact, it doesn't matter who you are, white, black, brown, whatever. If you have a long history of being pushed down and not being able to establish equity, then that would mean systemic racism does exist. So would you say in the 20th century, black people were pushed down?
in
right?
the 20th
You would agree with
century,
that.
and I would say in the 20th century,
Okay,
sure, but
and so
in this
there
day,
exist
in
those
this day
rippling
and age,
effects
when
today.
everybody has access to those same resources, when everybody
That's
has
great,
access,
but they still have the systemic inequality. It's there. Household income for black Americans comparison to white Americans, it's literally like double in difference.
that live in various conditions, yet everybody still has access and can go to and partake in anywhere that they would like to. And it's just the fact that they are allowed to, and the fact that they have the opportunity to through all of that, doesn't mean that that systemic racism could truly exist, because at that point it's not the fact that it's not the systems that are keeping them down. It's at this point their own people. It's not what I want to say, but it is in the ballpark of what I want, what I'm trying to get for, what I'm trying to go for. And it's like you talk about how all of these people are still suffering from the effects. We have had so many different examples of people making it, and yet those aren't the ones that are pushed in culture, that are pushed as examples of people as those who are making it. So the fact that that people are able to, those races are still able to thrive today, and they still have the ability to thrive today, it can't really, it's not systemic. It's just there's a culture issue that's happening at that point. It's a culture thing, and not systems that are in place, because those systems were in a sense taken out, and it's a like I said, it's a culture thing. We would need to teach ourselves and teach others that they are able to do it, which is the whole point of how education over the 30 years after the passing of the Civil Rights Act, you had schools teaching kids to not look at your own neighbor, at your own classmates, through the color of their skin, but simply the fact that everybody is an American at this point.
So I'm not against helping yourselves. I'm not against trying to improve yourself, and that I'm also not against the idea that you can help yourselves. That does not mean, though, that systemic racism does not exist. It certainly does. And I would like to share my screen if you can share it for me. Speak easy. So the U.S. Census Bureau released its annual report on income in the United States. According to the data in the report, the median income of Black households in the United States in 2024 was $56,020, down slightly from 2023. The median income figure shows the point where half of all families earn below the level and half earned above this level. For non-Hispanic white households in 2024, the median income figure was $92,530, up 1.3% from 2023. So we know for a fact Black households make less.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you one more time.
Black, just because
Why?
black- just-
Do you think that that's just like what?
Well,
Culture?
just
Like
because
a bad
black
culture?
I
What
would
is
say,
that?
I would chalk that up. I would chalk that up to culture, but just because
What culture
black,
causes you to make 56,000 as opposed to 92,000?
one where the people of your own ilk are essentially telling you that you can't do it yourself, which
So
you
because
have,
other
which
people are saying that you can't do it,
it's
that's why
often
you
our
make
own people.
52,000?
The crab, it's a crab bucket mentality that through in black neighborhoods and black communities where we're always having to take from others. We're always having to ask for
So
essentially
what is that? Hold on,
scraps.
that
And-
crab bucket. But what causes Black people to have that crab bucket mentality? I agree with you that does exist. I'm simply saying what I believe the cause of that is due to systemic racism of the past.
I mean, you
but
say
I'm
it's
curious
of
as to
of
what
the
you
past,
think
but
the cause is.
I mean, it's ingrained, but there are several other communities, several other races, and I look to Asians as like the quintessential example here, where they faced persecution themselves, and yet they still can't. Yet they are still thriving. They're one of the most.
Do you think Asians suffered as bad as Black Americans
It doesn't
in the
matter
United
whether
States?
they suffered as bad; they still suffered, and yet
I'm
they
just
were
saying
able
that
to.
what Asians weren't pushed down anywhere close to as bad
It
as
doesn't.
Black
but
Americans.
at
So it doesn't
this point, this
surprise
is-
me
it's
that
not
you see
talking
a
about
sudden
scale. It's not
change in the
scale.
wealth disparity.
It's not scale in how bad someone was pushed down. The fact that they were still pushed down, but still came together as a community, as a race, and became one of the most affluent ethnicities in America, even more so than white people, means that it's not so much a systemic thing, but a culture thing within themselves.
But culture
And
is
at this
created.
point,
Do you agree that culture is created by environment?
it's
Where does culture come from? I think it's from environment.
environment.
environment is
What do you mean by environment?
Inspires culture.
What do you mean by environment? in this case?
External sense stimuli, as in you look out and you look at the rocks and the trees and the rivers and the things around you, and you establish culture around the things that are around you.
So the rocks and the trees, those.
I'm just saying
Oh,
things
it's
around
the-
you. In the case of urban civilization, it would be the buildings, the concrete.
Okay, so
I'm just being flowery with my
everyone lives
language.
around a building. Everyone lives in
Yeah.
towns and stuff
But
like
Black
that. So
people were pushed into areas
How?
of poor socioeconomic status.
through
Redlining.
what means? Through what means were
Redlining.
they pushed?
Redlinings and being denied
gerrymandering?
access to
Not the fact-
loans, and HOAs that would specifically look at a person's skin color and say, you're not fit for this white group, even though you have the money to be here. That's what.
So it wouldn't be things like gerrymandering where they
Gerrymandering has to do with voting, not whether or not a person is denied access to a house. The problem is like Black people, they could, for example, establish loans, and they were able to they had the money, but they physically were barred access to things like loans and being able to go access higher affluent white neighborhoods throughout the 20th century. And
So-
because the equity overall is lower,
I
that would
just
mean socioeconomic
remembered
status is
something.
lower.
I
That's
just-
that's
I
what
just-
systemic racism is.
It can't. Oh, I just remembered something because we talked about Black Wall Street and the black banks, and there in those communities of affluent blacks that were propping up and then supposedly burned down. Well, during that time, I forgot exactly where, but I remember seeing the black banks at the time that were building up all this credit, that were building themselves to be, to compete against the whites of that era. those same black banks would look at poor folk, usually those same black people, and they would deny them those same loans that you're talking about. Why would if systemic racism were to be as prevalent as you say that it is, even through the 20th century, but even till today, why would those same banks, those same black bankers, look at their own and not not help them out and give them the loan that the whites would deny?
And then the Tulsa race massacre happened.
But they didn't, though. They would look at those
No,
same.
but they
looked at
were.
the
They
same.
were actively
those black
Black
bankers
Wall Street
looked at their own
empirically
people. They
helping
looked at
black
their own
Americans,
you would
and
have
it
these same
showed
black
that
bankers
blacks are
today.
perfectly-
Look at
that
those
black
same
people-
black
oh my
people.
goodness.
Hold up, Tomahawk. Let
Sorry,
Amender finish what he
and
was
it
saying.
said
there,
that black people were perfectly capable of being able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and it was white people that pushed that down. So here, take a look. Here's another screen
where-
share. So the Tulsa Race Massacre was a 2-day-long white supremacist terrorist massacre that took place in Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the United States between the May 31st and June 1st of 1921. Mobs of white residents, some of whom have been appointed as deputies and armed by city government officials, attacked black residents and destroyed homes and businesses. This event considered one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history. The attackers burned and destroyed more than 35 square blocks of the neighborhood, at the time one of the wealthiest black communities in the United States, colloquially known as Black Wall Street. And you're sitting there telling me that systemic racism does not exist. There we have an instance of black people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps empirically, and they
That
can do
was-
it. And I love that they're doing it. And then white people said, fuck that. We don't want black people to be equal to white people. And they pushed them down. That's an example. The Black Wall Street is a perfect example of systemic racism that 100% existed throughout the 20th century. And it is the lack of being able to build up equity across the board for black Americans that results in systemic racism in 2025. That's true.
I know, because you could look at
Well, then
other
what
you
caused
can
Black
you
Wall
can
Street
look
to
at
get
other
burned
there
down?
are other races that have gone through something similar. I mean, you could look at Jews.
Not at the
who
level
ha-
of black people. Not at the level of black
Jews
people.
did not face that same amount
Jews
of
have a
persecution.
great deal of equity because of usury
But they
being
did
not
not have
considered
their
a sin
shit. But they
throughout the
did not have their
16th
shit
century.
burned down
They had
throughout the
plenty of
centuries,
money.
throughout the
White people had,
millennium.
or Jews had plenty of money among their families in comparison to black people.
But they didn't
It's
have.
not even
They
comparable.
haven't faced that same persecution. They haven't faced that.
They
those
have
same
faced
burning,
the same
those same
persecution,
burnings
but they
in-
have had
from
access
other
to higher
groups.
levels of equity.
And didn't bring themselves together. The whole reason we haven't brought ourselves, the whole reason we haven't, as a race, haven't brought ourselves, is more so the fact that we keep telling ourselves that we're not good enough. Even
What would
though
you say
we
the
are,
number
even though
one-
we had
what
the
is-
civil rights movement to tell us that we were good
What
enough.
is the number one reason that pulls somebody out of poverty, would you say?
Usually determination. They
Determination.
well, determination in the form of.
Are you aware of a concept
perseverance.
called compounding interest?
compounding interest?
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yes.
Okay, so that means the more money you have, the more amount of money you can gain in the future as a multiplier, right?
Okay. Anyone can.
So
have
if you
access
start
to
off
this.
with less money, then you have a lower probability of being able to make more money.
But that doesn't
Right?
stop you from being
And the
able
number
to
one
make
thing-
that money.
but
They,
the
you
number
can still
one thing-
make that money. You can.
I'm not
you've
saying
heard of
you
being able to
can't
take
make the
you've heard
money.
the
I'm
concept
not
of being able to
saying
take
you
a
can't make
dollar
money. I've
and
already
making a
addressed
million out of
this.
it.
I am not saying you can't make money or that you can't have a successful business or that black people can't help themselves. They can. I agree with you. They can. And I think that's
And
a
so-
really
and
good
being a-
mentality to have. That
Mhm.
doesn't revoke whether or not systemic racism exists.
so far
You seem to be
the way
completely
so
not
far, the way you've
acknowledging the
described
concepts such as
systemic
equity
racism-
and how people get pushed down on the basis of not having enough equity, or even if they did have enough equity, still being pushed out of society simply for their skin color. That's true.
I mean, at this point, you're just talking about the fact you're bringing up systemic racism in the form that when you just because they happen to be, just because like this is the tired excuse, just because that they're black and just because they come from a less affluent neighborhood or they don't have enough equity doesn't mean that they can't. You're basically suggesting that
Holy crap.
because they can't.
I've
just
explained
because-
it. I'm not saying you can't. For the 10th time,
the
I'm
si-
telling you, I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying that there exist systems that make it harder. That's true.
So harder doesn't mean that it wouldn't be possible, and the fact that it still is possible,
And the fact that it was
still is
done
possible,
specifically for because a person was black. That's true. We know that to be the case. There are so
this is
many
in the
examples of
past.
that. I'm
Okay,
actually
what about
astonished that you
how-
even
how-
brought
how-
up
how would
Black
you-
Wall Street. It is one of the best examples of like, it's not even systemic racism. It's just racism, and then it results in systemic outcomes,
What-
which means less
what
equity for
system-
people
what
throughout the
system-
20th
what
century.
system came out? What system came out of that not crisis, but tragedy? What system
Being
came
denied
out of
access to loans, being denied access
black
to
bankers
being denied
denied
access
black
to
people
equity.
loans too. Black people were
I'm, that's
denied
beside
themselves
that.
loans as
I'm
well.
not saying that. Hold on. How many throughout the 20th century? You're telling me that there was a bunch of black people running banks? Come on, seriously?
I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened when you're talking
Yeah, and
about
then
black
and then
people, when
white
you're talking
white
about black
supremacists
people-
came and burned it down because
But the
they
thing is,
thought
those
that
same
you
bankers
were
looked at
inferior.
being poor isn't. But that's the thing is, all of that was leading up to say that being poor isn't racist. That being poor is just being poor. Being poor is just you don't have.
But
you
if
don't
it was
have a lot of-
done specifically on the basis of race and ensured people's poverty,
have to-
then
would have to-
it would be.
But it's not.
Again, it's all about outcome. Intent doesn't matter, right? What you have is, once again, I'm
Well,
talking about a system
if it's
that is
if it's
built
simply
decades
racism,
ago with openly racist rules. Even if you
That sounds like
removed
intent.
the racist language later,
Is that-
the
is that not
effects
intent?
still persisted. Race was barred from owning property in certain areas. Homeowners Association specifically restricted minorities in predominantly white neighborhoods, as well as redlining laws preventing black people access to higher equity. Property ownership is the main way wealth is accumulated in the United States.
And yet
That's
all of the-
true.
and yet
Wealth
most of-
determines the schools you go to, the
And yet a
neighborhoods you
lot
live in,
of
the
the
credit access
homes
you
that are
have to, as
currently
well as
being-
political power.
And
If
yet a-
you do not have access to these neighborhoods and you do not have access to these homes, then the systemic racism that causes a person to have lower socioeconomic conditions is what happens.
So would
We know this
corporations
to
a
be the
race at this
case.
point? So would corporations be themselves be a race? Like corporations like BlackRock, Vanguard? Because those are the ones that are truly
What?
that are truly owning the homes these days. Those would be the ones that are owning the homes these days. Everybody's being put into rental properties, and these less affluent neighborhoods are being either gobbled up by corporations at this point.
I agree
So-
with you. That is also a problem. And I would
But that-
argue, hey, but
corporations-
that
but
has nothing to
corporations
do
don't-
whether or not that we should divest corporations the ability
But
to
that's-
use homes as their personal investment assets is a separate discussion as to whether or not systemic racism exists. If you're willing to
But it-
acknowledge that race was barred or black people were barred from owning properties in certain areas through HOAs, as well as predominantly white neighborhoods and redlining laws, if you're willing to acknowledge that, and
I
that
will
property
acknowledge-
ownership
I
is the
can
main
concede-
way
I can
wealth is.
concede that. I can concede
Okay,
that.
so
for
then would you
it
also
happening
agree that-
at the time? We don't. Those same.
But that's still pervasive today, considering when you look at household wealth, of black
Household wealth
Americans
does not-
compared to
hold on,
white
hold-
Americans, it is almost double. White
Why
Americans
household-
on
hold
average
on. Why
make
household
double
wealth is-
what a black
household
American
wealth
does.
is not indicative of whether or is not truly indicative of whether or not one can take out a loan. Again, you can look at those. You can look at you say white neighbor.
What?
Average, yeah, because those still you still.
Why don't you help me out?
poor-
I have two
poor areas.
households, one and both of them want to take out a loan.
Okay.
Right? One of them shows a household wealth of 109,000
All
and the
right.
other one shows a household wealth of 56,000. Which one do you think is going to get a big access to a bigger loan?
It would be the 109,001.
Okay,
Now,
so then
think-
the predominantly white
Hold on,
household
hold
would
on.
be
You
the one
never
getting the
mentioned-
better
you
loan.
never mentioned race in that entire scenario there. You
So
just
when I
are
said the
now
109,000, that's the average
ha-
for
you
white
have it- you have
for
it.
white
How-
homeowners. For black households, it's half that. It's
But you
56,000.
can, but again, you can look at that same. You can look at that
So you're
same
saying that a
scenario
loan
and you
doesn't
can
get
switch
affected?
it.
Of course it does.
You can look at that.
You
same
make less
scenario
money.
and
If you
switch
make
the
less money,
races.
then
can
you
look-
get a lower
You
loan.
can look at that same scenario and switch the races, and you would still have. And you bankers would
I'm not
look at
saying that there aren't poor white people or rich black
But
people.
that's the
That
whole
does
thing, is
exist.
that
I'm
you
talking
would
about
look-
the overall, the system, if you will, the systemic thing
Greedy banks
that
will
prevents
look-
black
gre-
people access
Greedy
to
banks.
higher equity.
Greedy banks will look at those same numbers.
Oh my God.
And would look at those same numbers and we'll take the one of higher. No, that's why the scenario that you brought up with that one, that hypothetical scenario, you can switch the races and the banks would still look at the $106,000 home and go, those people are better than the $56,000 income one. It doesn't matter whether these are black or white households. That's
In
why the median
2025, I
that's why the
agree with you.
median
That's
income-
correct. That's correct. If you have, if you show a great deal of equity, you likely have access to better loans. I'm not disagreeing with that, but the question is whether or not that a system of inequality exists, which we can
would
observe
banks-
that it does
what do
overall,
banks-
which
what-
means
when they
that
look-
systemic racism does exist.
when a bank looks at someone's when a bank looks at someone's equity or capital when they are about to give out a loan, what is the primary thing that they look for?
Assets.
They look
Their
for
equity.
assets. So if a black person has loads of assets, has they have the shares, they have the shares, they have the money, they have the income necessary to show that they are, and in this day and age is very prominent. Is very prominent. And they don't, and they see, and they look at another guy. This guy would be white or Asian, and they have less
And have
assets. They
lower,
have basically
yeah.
no assets, and they
Yeah.
look at those two.
And then they don't get a loan because they're poor, right?
Yeah,
And they don't get a loan because they're poor, right?
because they're poor. But these are
All right,
this is
so
a white
on
poor
average,
person. This is
are black
hold on.
people poorer than white people?
This is a white poor person. They look at the
Hold
white
on, one
poor
more
person,
time.
They say,
One more time.
No, they can't.
Are black
do it.
people poorer than white people?
That doesn't mean that the system is inherently racist.
That
when the
is
banks
literally
look
what
at, hold on. When the banks look at the, I switched, but that's the whole thing. I switched the scenario to where the white person, the one that is less than. The white person is the guy that has less equity, that has less assets, and yet the bank will look at that. The bank will look at the one with more equity, with more assets,
Doesn't
and will be
revoke whether or not the systemic racism does exist.
You-
I'm not
you-
saying
I
that
mean,
there aren't
clearly
rich
it
black
clearly it
people.
doesn't.
Once
If they're
again,
gonna
for the
go with
for
they're
the
going with
upteenth
the safer
time,
pick of the black person who
for the
has
upteenth
more
time,
assets in that. At
I
that
am not
point.
saying black people can't be rich.
But you are saying that because
No,
they're
I'm
black,
not.
they have a
I'm
larger
saying that they have a
propensity for being-
disadvantage because of systemic inequality. That's true.
Not when the banks are just going to look at the assets at hand and just be like, oh,
And
well,
if you
these-
have lower assets on average, that means that you get less money.
but oh my goodness, the thing. But
Listen,
for-
Tomahawk, I don't think you're a bad guy. I really don't. I think, listen, I used to be hardcore libertarian. I was all about that. Hey, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy. I'm 100% with you. Even to this day, as like a hardcore, just social, woke, progressive, liberal soy boy, right? Even to this day, I still believe in that pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I think that's a great mentality
you want to take
to
assets
have.
from you want to take assets from the more affluent and give it to and basically
Fuck yeah. Because I think white people fucked over black people. And I think white people should go out of their way to help out people because I believe rising tides lift all boats. If people are genuinely poor because of socioeconomic inequality of the past, and that they can't pull themselves up because they get consistently denied access to education
would you
because
reconcile
they're
the
too
poor
poor,
whites in this
I would
area
go,
that didn't
hey,
have
let's
that same
fix that.
affluence?
100%.
How
100%.
would-
Because listen, let me
How
ask
would you
you this, right?
reconcile with the poor whites that did not go through all of that though? That did not have this affluence that you're talking about, that didn't have all of these assets. How would you
Then I would address having social safety nets for them as well. I don't believe a person can be a valuable economic. Hold on,
when you're
I don't
just trying
believe,
to when you're
but
trying
it is
to uplift
overwhelmingly
anyone
predominantly
of
there
poor
for black
status.
people. It is overwhelmingly predominantly pervasive among black people. That's true
Just
because of
it's
systemic
predominant doesn't
racism that has
mean-
existed in the
just be-
past, and it is pervasive to this day.
Just because it's predominant for black people doesn't mean that they don't have. That just doesn't mean that the resources aren't there for them to be able to.
I'm not saying there
succeed.
aren't
And so-
resources. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be resources. But the question is whether or not systemic racism exists. It does.
It could not, because you had a bank would look at those assets and would just go based off of those assets, especially in this day and age when everyone is told that racism is bad. When
I
everyone
agree,
is told
racism
that you
bad.
can't,
But again, it doesn't require a single racist actor. You'll notice that I was able to predicate and show that, hey, check out this system. And then I broke it down step by step. Hey, take a look at this. 20th century redlining laws resulting in lower equity. People were pushed off into lower socioeconomic locations, which then results in lower educational attainment. K through 12 education is degraded among minorities than it is for white affluent people. Heck,
By how
it gets
much?
even worse than that.
I'll
Did
say
you
by-
know? Did you know that lead poisoning increases aggression and that it also decreases your ability in educational attainment as well? And did you know
Where-
that
where would there be- where
overwhelmingly
is there lead
minorities
in
are the
America
ones
in
where
this
they
day and age?
place lead factories in? Did you
Where-
know that they place battery factories today in around black neighborhoods and away from white neighborhoods?
Where
All
is it?
throughout the United States.
Like where?
I can give you examples of one that exists in Florida, for example, but it does exist. You can Google this. I'm not making this up when I'm showing you. If you have an excess amount of lead in the air, that would increase aggression
where
and lower
is it?
socioeconomic
Where-
status
where-
because
like-
they
like a
knew
plant.
that they didn't want to negatively affect
What-
white people, but they didn't give a fuck about
Where-
black people. That's another example of
Where's
systemic
the
racism.
plant? Like you say that there are
I
plants
could give you
around.
examples of plants that show up in low socioeconomic status that increase lead concentrations. I can show you that. Hold on.
And just while he's pulling that up, let me remind the chat, you can find both the debaters in the description, okay? It wasn't there at the starting. Someone had to remind me, so refresh. If you've been here from the start, you'll see it there.
All right. So here's another example. Racial segregation makes consequences of lead exposure worse. Racial segregation and lead exposure amplified each other's detrimental effects on reading scores in children. The findings could guide interventions aimed at improving children's cognitive development. Racial residential segregation, in which racial or ethnic groups live in separate, unequal neighborhoods, tend to concentrate factors that contribute to racial disparities in health. These include socioeconomic and environmental stressors. Racial residential segregation is associated with different death rates, pregnancy outcomes, and chronic diseases. Researchers have been exploring the relationship between racial residential segregation and children's cognitive development. Lead exposure is known to cause cognitive cognitive and developmental problems in children. Kids can be exposed to lead via lead-based paint, lead pipes, or proximity of sources like lead pollution. These factors tend to be more prevalent in poor neighborhoods, but few, if any, studies have evaluated the complicated relationships between residential segregation, lead exposure, and cognitive development. An NIH-funded research team in Duke University, Rice University, and the University of Notre Dame linked detailed birth records with lead screening and standardization testing data in almost 26,000 children in North Carolina. The children were all born in the year 2000. Standardized testing occurred 10 to 11 years later at the end of fourth grade. The researchers also developed a measure of racial residential segregation in different areas. Results appeared Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in August 23 of 2022. Overall, non-Hispanic black children had higher median blood levels of non-Hispanic white children. More than 80% of the black children experienced economic disadvantage. Black children also lived in areas with greater racial residential segregation than white children, both at birth and at the time of standardized testing. Reading scores declined with higher levels of either blood lead or racial residential segregation at the time of testing. How can
This
it
doesn't.
be
This
any,
doesn't
it's
say
any
where
more
they.
any
Where
clearer?
are these? Where,
How to make it any clearer?
But where are these factories? Where are they?
What do you mean? I just gave you an example. They're literally measuring it.
You
Oh
showed,
my God!
You showed an edit. It's not an editorial. What?
No, this is an NIH discovered paper. This is
It
literally
doesn't show
from the
where
National
these-
Institute of
It does
Health.
not show where these.
It was specifically
lead
in North
factories
Carolina.
are-
I mean, if you want the individual studies, I can give you the exact locations of the lead concentrations, in which case we could discuss that. But you realize that this is empirically verifiable. Do you understand?
No, because because you're talking as man. But
I don't know what else to say. I mean, just
talking like residential neighborhoods. It's not like those areas, those majority black neighborhoods are at this point I don't know where I'm
I don't have anything else to say. I feel like I've laid my case, and I think it is empirically verifiable. It is there. I do believe that systemic racism exists to this day, and I've exhibited multiple cases, even in the state of 2025. I'm able to exhibit empirically that these things exist. Whether or not you're willing to acknowledge
none of the
its
sources that you
existence is independent.
None of the sources
to-
that he showed are any cases that happen in 2025, and
Yes, it is.
no, it's
And
not.
I mean, because it's still there. It's still
Mhm.
there. And secondly, I mean, you could say all day long that it doesn't exist. I believe it does exist, and I think I want there to be as many opportunities for as many people as possible. And I believe that rising tides lift all boats. And I would hate the idea that it's like, I have, for example, let's say a black child that is the next Einstein, that because of excess lead exposure, all of a sudden is no longer the next Einstein, but is the next remedial education student, because we had decided to put increased lead concentrations in predominantly poor black neighborhoods. I believe that if there are more people that are productive in society, this benefits everybody, including white people. So I believe that it is up to everybody to assist people that are in poor socioeconomic conditions to remove systemic racism. But if you can't even acknowledge it exists, we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Because you're talking, because you say these things where it's these all encompassing terms like poor and poor affluent, where the words themselves don't indicate that there is a racial attachment to it. The only time that you put a racial attachment to it is when you yourself add a racial attachment to it. And yeah,
I do not need to. It's all about outcomes. It does not require a racist actor. I've already explained that.
it does not require.
That's correct.
But-
Systemic
but-
racism does not require a racist actor
But
in
if
order
you're
for
if
it
the
to
intent,
exist.
but
It's
however,
a system that results in racist outcomes. Right?
And yet
Increased
every-
lead
and yet-
exposure among children, predominantly black populations would be an instance of a systemic issue that needs to be addressed because it leads to a racist outcome.
But if
It
these-
literally
these
makes
same- if
people
these-
dumber.
However, if
Lead
these same-
exposure
if
makes
these
people
same
dumber.
Lead factories would be put in predominantly white neighborhoods. Do you think that the same
that
those
white
same
people would
effects-
get dumber. Yep.
Yeah,
That's
so-
exactly how that works.
So, and so it would-
Exactly, you got it. In fact, we had an increase of lead exposure throughout the globe, which actually did increase violent acts throughout the globe because we had placed lead in our gasoline, and it took pushbacks against with the United States' assistance, the government, to remove lead from gas. It was probably one of the worst instances. And then boom, all of a sudden, when they removed lead from gas, violent crime rates went way down and had consistently been going down since.
and that is an instance against systemic racism, because at that point you were basically taking an element out of a fuel. You're taking an element out that was clearly affecting the general populace, and thus it benefited everyone. So where would the racism be in something like that when you
Because when you place factories and lead paint in predominantly poor areas, resulting in higher lead concentrations, which impact your reading performance and therefore your educational attainment, that leads to systemically racist outcomes, because that means black educational attainment is therefore reduced because they are in a predominantly black poor area.
and yet still poor areas come in all colors at that point, and it's just
Except it's predominantly
it
minorities
doesn't matter
that
if
are
it's
thrown into these
predominantly
areas.
poor areas are poor
I mean,
areas,
it's
and though
like, again, I mean, why is that the case? Like, it's a
doesn't-
systemic racism that
is-
caused that to
in
be
and
the
of
case.
itself is a non sequitur, because if you're gonna just talk about poor areas, again, poor areas happen and exist all over the country, and these systems that are designed against poorer neighborhoods affect anyone that is not affluent, and anyone that isn't affluent at that point. And so you can't exactly call it systemic as a system or systemic racism when it affects anyone of all races that happen to be in that.
Except now it's
state.
predominantly affecting black communities. That's true. Systemic racism is just a racial disparity that is produced and maintained by institution, laws, and policies and social systems. Even if nobody is intending to discriminate, there can be systems that result in that. Lead exposure is a very good example of systemic racism because the disparity exists specifically between white and black Americans, where black Americans receive more lead exposure. Which impacts their reading scores.
Is there actually more? Are there actually more lead factories that are built and maintained in these black neighborhoods than there are
Yes.
in these white neighborhoods? Again,
Yes.
I would need to see them, and the article that you brought up says.
Well, again, I brought up
speaks
lead
about the
exposure.
effects of lead exposure. Those
Yeah,
are the
I'm
effects,
just saying,
but
like,
they're
why
not
do you
the-
think that
Those are
why-
the
why-
effects, but not the actual locations that are actually
Well, I'm
within
asking,
those
like, why is it that
neighborhoods.
non-Hispanic black children had higher median blood lead levels than non-Hispanic white children? Why would that be the case?
I have
Where's
no
the
idea
lead coming
because
from? It's got to come from somewhere, right? It's not magicked into existence. It's got to come from somewhere.
But it may come. It has to come from somewhere. But you didn't show
So if
that
I
in that
put
article.
a
The
lead
article just
factory-
spoke about the article just spoke about the.
If I put a lead
effects of
factory
lead.
in a black neighborhood, or there's more
Again,
lead paint
I could
in
s-
black neighborhoods than there are in white neighborhoods,
You could say again. You could say the same thing for white people. If you put these if you put lead factories.
yeah,
or
but
lead
it's not
paint in white
predominantly white
neighborhoods,
people
but it-
that are in predominantly poor areas.
But that's not a systemic thing. It's not. You can
That
apply
is
it. To,
systemic.
you can
That's a
apply it
system
to other races.
that
You
predominantly
can ap-
negatively affects black people.
But you can the fact that you can still apply it to these other races means that it's not
Man.
inherently a racist thing. It's not
Yeah, I don't
inherently a
know.
racist thing
don't
just
think
because
anything can convince you, buddy.
just because it predominantly affects one race over the other. The whole point of the whole point of the systemic racism thing is that it would have to show that these systems would not just disproportionate, but only truly affect and give advantage to one race over another. When all of these can be explained, all of these systems can be explained in more essentially classist society, in essentially classist terms between like rich, poor, affluent, not affluent, and whatever the opposite of affluent is. I'm mixing up on words, but it's not the fact that race that I wish I had more words. Holy shit. These systems aim to affect these are all encompassing systems that can be found all over the country, and therefore it's not a racist thing when it affects everyone. Just because it disproportionately affects does not mean that there isn't an effect that doesn't mean that doesn't affect other races in a similar way who happen to be in that same class.
Once
and
again,
s-
I'm not telling you that there are not poor white children or that there aren't black rich people. That this doesn't remove the argument at all. Anyway, it looks like we're out of time.
Yeah,
All right, that will wrap up the open floor back and forth. Again, excellent exchanges from both sides tonight. We're now going to enter into the closing statements here. Quick reminder to you guys in the live chat here: the live Q&A is there if you guys want to put your questions in there for either debater. Make sure you drop them in now, and because we're going to get into the Q&A right after this. But remember, the super chats, PayPals, and Cash App questions still take priority. So if those fill up the full 30 minutes, not all of the free chat questions will make it through. So if there's something you really want guaranteed, put it through one of the priority options. With that being said, we're going to move into closings where each debater gets 5 minutes to make their final case. We'll start it off here with First Amender so that you can, so Tomahawk, you could have the last word. So First Amender, whenever you are ready, I will start up the timer with your voice.
This is the conclusion, yes?
Yeah, closing statements, yeah.
Okay. Reading test scores had declined with higher levels of either blood lead or racial segregation and segregation at the time of testing. The researchers also found that blood lead levels of residential segregation interacted to affect reading test scores among black children. For those with low blood lead levels, test scores were not affected by racial residential segregation. However, among those with higher blood lead levels, test scores decreased as racial residential segregation increased. This effect became more marked as blood lead levels increased. When I bring up that it is predominant that in poor socioeconomic conditions that there is in fact increased amounts of lead, and that overall since redlining had occurred throughout the 20th century, Black people had consistently been pushed down and pushed aside into lower socioeconomic conditions, which would predominantly affect additional lead concentration levels, which further reduces educational attainment. It is also true that since property taxes are garnered by the value of a specific piece of property, poor areas fundamentally has less money to go to schools. This means fundamentally white affluent areas tend to have a higher socioeconomic attainment, and and Black students and predominantly minority and poor areas have lower educational attainment. This once again requires zero racist actors. I'm not talking about a person that is wringing their hands together and saying, "Oh, how do I infect all the Black children with the lead exposure?" No, it is likely because of the way that things had been built in the past, requiring not a single racist actor, but upon discovery in more wealthy areas, they likely removed the lead paint. They removed the lead exposure in rich affluent areas. Meanwhile, poor areas were often neglected, which would result in further systemic discrimination. I believe that this has been explained and would show that systemic racism to exist, once again, requiring not a single racist actor in order to reach racist outcomes. Higher educational attainment is associated with higher socioeconomic well-being. And if you don't get a decent shot from K through 12, the chances are not in your favor that you will be receiving a higher educational attainment. So understanding that, this is not saying that Black people cannot succeed. Certainly it is possible for Black people to succeed. But the point is that there do exist systems that are there, that 100% do exist. I can show empirically how they do exist. And my goal is to recognize that those exist and then seek to repair them. And with that, I concede the rest of my time.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement. And with that, we are going to hand it over to Tomahawk. Tomahawk, whenever you are ready for your closing statement, I will start the timer up with your voice.
Being poor isn't racist, and the systems that exist to keep poor people down aren't also themselves racist, since they affect more than just a singular race. You can bring up the fact that it disproportionately hurts. It disproportionately hurts a single demographic group over others. Doesn't discount the fact that it still affects those other groups, and thus thus exists not through race in particular, but because those systems exist to keep down, say, poor people, for example. In this debate, this was basically a shown. You can have all the empirical evidence, empirical data, but when you come up with these various instances and examples of how Black people would be passed over, so to speak, you can instantly turn that scenario around to putting a white person in the same scenario, especially in this day and age, and show that the same thing would happen to them. The point of whether systemic racism exists in the United States or not isn't so much. You talk about outcomes. We talk about outcomes, but the outcomes are, in a sense, universal. Just because there's a scalar mode to it isn't the fact, not the fact, isn't the I don't know what the word would be, but isn't the factor that it is racist with the factor that simply the system just exists to eat everyone, and for it to be inherently the intent would matter in this case, but since the intent has no actor, no specific or explicit actor to it, it therefore can't really be racist, even though it can't be racist since it affects everyone. These are systems. They don't and they exist, especially in today's day and age, to affect everyone. And because of that, you can't really claim that the systems thereby are racist. Not good with rebuttals. For that, I will concede my time on that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement, and that will conclude the closing statements. Great work from both debaters tonight. Again, for everybody watching, okay, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure you like the stream, subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss any of the debates we host here on the Swords of Reason. Okay, we run all kinds of matchups: political, cultural, social, philosophy, video games, everything. If there's a conversation worth clashing over, we bring it in the arena. And also, don't forget to subscribe to both tonight's debaters as well. Their links are in the description. Show them support, whether you agreed or disagreed. All right, it takes a lot more than you realize. Come up in front of a live audience and test their ideas. All right. So, and before I get to the before I start the timer for the chat Q&A, I usually ask 1 or 2 questions to each debater myself based on things I heard, arguments I want clarified, or things I just want repeated again. Even so, we're gonna start. I'll start here on the affirmative side. Based on for you, First Amender, based on the definition of systemic racism you gave, and if you want to say it again, that's no problem. What specific laws, policies, or institutions today best demonstrate that it still exists?
I would probably have to reference like some zoning law that probably places or allows there to be lead, increased amounts of lead, or industrialized facilities that allow lead concentrations to be at a certain level in predominantly poor areas as opposed to wealthy ones. That would be a good example. But mostly at this point in 2025, it's mostly rippling effect. So it doesn't actually require a physical law to be there. It's just the fact that there have been laws in the past and the effects of it are pervasive even today.
All right. And did you have anything for that, Tomahawk?
No, at the moment, no.
Okay, no worries. And then, what I would ask for the second question for you, First Amender, is how do you distinguish between like the disparities caused by the systemic racism versus those caused by cultural or some individual factor?
So cultural and individual factors, I think cultures and individuals are formed by your environment. And if the environment is poor, then you are more likely to have a poor culture or poor individual moral compass. Does that mean that there can't be somebody with a good moral compass, even despite all things? That's true. That can happen. But I'm saying if the probabilities are higher, then yeah, the culture will likely be poor.
All right. And then Tomahawk, did you have anything for that?
No.
All right. No worries. So my questions for you, Tomahawk, if racial disparities in areas like the income, policing, I thought incarceration would be brought up tonight. That wasn't brought up, but I know this is a talking point. Yeah. So like, if they're not due to systemic racism, what do you believe the primary causes of this are?
I would look at those same DEI policies that were brought up by First Amender in the fact that it's an optics thing. It's an optics thing where the whole issue behind talking about racism today is because racism is so bad, you don't want to look like a racist. You're going to the imperative is you want to you want to look good for essentially virtue signaling. You want to look good in those cases, so you're not going to essentially you're gonna sort of you're gonna go by the law and still quote unquote arrest them, but you're not going to really punish them because it's a bad look to be propagating that same sentiment of, well, black people get criminalized more under the system, sort of thing. That's what it is.
All right. And did you have anything for that, First Amender?
Nope.
All right. And then for the second question for you, what would you count as evidence that systemic racism does exist? Right? Like if such evidence were
Are
present.
you asking me?
No. Sorry, that's for Tomahawk.
Yeah,
So-
I was like, my whole thing was that.
For Tomahawk, what would you count as evidence? Like for you, like what would you accept as systemic racism does exist if such as evidence were present?
If such evidence were present, the actual evidence would be. It would culminate in a law of some kind. It would culminate in a law or justice decision like Plessy versus Ferguson, which led to the Jim Crow South. You know, things that would categorically be seen as, you know, this was made specifically because of some racist initiative, separate but equal, those sorts of things. We've had it in the past, we don't have it now. He talks about ripple effects, but if ripple effects are all that it really is, at some point the ripples stop. And what we have basically today is the ripples had stopped in like the late 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, and only started back up again around the time that Barack Obama was elected.
All right. And did you have anything for that, First Amender?
Therefore, what? Barack Obama should not have been elected in order to
No.
stop the
It's-
ripples.
Barack Obama is simply the example to which basically given form towards the topic coming back up, because when he
because black people get represented in presidency.
he was the first one, but whenever he would
That's
have
so
whenever
weird.
he would have his policies stopped,
God damn it!
they
It
would
is such
they
a-
would
It's such a.
they would
I feel like I'm in
attribute
the
it to
Twilight
the
Zone where I
fact
have to
that the
discuss this with
Republicans in
a
the
black
House and-
person as a white person. Like it's just so strange. I don't know.
they would the media narrative at the time when Barack Obama was having his policy stopped by the Senate and the House and whatnot, they would call it, oh, this is just the Republicans being racist, and you know they just want to keep the black man, you know, all of those old reasons for why black people couldn't advance, because Barack Obama couldn't do whatever he wanted, and the opposition was bringing up valid points such as this is going to affect us in a very negative way later. The exact words notwithstanding, there's going to be some, you know, an okay criticism. I'll just say, because I don't have the words. They would just say, well, no, you just don't like black people. You just don't like Barack Obama. So, and that was the constant narrative. When it really was not, and they had legitimate criticisms that were being brought up, but were dismissed because, well, you're just being racist, which is where we have all of this today.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that was it.
All right, no worries. All right, so we're gonna start the timer up and get into the Q&A here from the chat. Reminder for you guys in the chat: the super chats do take priority, and if they fill up the whole timer, we may not get to the other questions. So, if you want to make sure it comes through, send it that way. But let's start up the timer here, and first thing we got is a gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much, Kokomo. I appreciate that big time. Bully Mom comes in for $10. Says, "You got this, our token tomahawk." You got this,
I
tomahawk.
appreciate
You
it.
got
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You just got to call it token.
And then we got another 5 from Bully Mom. Says, "Amender, what proof would you need to prove your position wrong? You have a black guy telling you, a white person, that it is wrong. More ADL studies?"
I think like if you have a household income equaling much closer to white people, then I would venture to say systemic racism has been quashed.
So you're looking for a threshold. You're looking for a threshold.
Yeah, hell
of
yeah. Hell yeah. I
basically
want there
if
to be
everything
more
is 50
opportunity for everybody. There's not enough opportunity for black people. Let's make the opportunity be there so that way they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And it's not because of some stupid environmental or socioeconomic factor.
Even though we have the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that basically
correct.
just even that says that's not happening anymore. We had that ratified.
But
We had
racist
that
systems
passed.
still do exist, as can be exhibited per median household incomes for black people versus white people.
All right. Our next one comes in. Member for 10 months. Let's go, Daniel. Thank you very much. I wonder where these 2 younglings' moms hide their Elf on a Shelf last night.
I don't know how old that they think I am, but I'm 36. So I'm not a youngling. I
That's a good
provide the
one.
presents.
All right. $10 comes in from Original Vintage. You really think greedy banks won't take interest payments from minorities, especially if you think they are systematically racist and take advantage at every opportunity under your theory?
Yeah, they probably charge higher interest rates too. This only exacerbates my argument.
Okay,
So
you
why
didn't
don't-
have
why-
nothing for that.
I guess my question in response would be like, why wouldn't they do that for Asians? Since they're also
Because they have higher socioeconomic status.
Okay. All right. So then we got $5 comes in from Dane. Says, "It would be interesting to compare black poverty wealth with the lower 13% of the white population rather than the entirety of white population."
Very true. Very true.
It would be interesting to compare black poverty and wealth with the lower 13% of the white population rather than the entirety of the white population. Sure, that would be. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that there don't exist, instances where a poor white person can't get a leg up. That certainly does exist, and I would seek to correct that as well. I believe rising tides lifts all boats, so I would want to help out everybody who's poor, not just black people. But I'm saying that I would help black people for sure because they do have predominantly they have worse off outcomes in comparison. I actually just found out Asian families hold more wealth than all other racial groups. They have I almost don't even believe this amount because it's such a high amount. It's an average of $535,400.
If anything, that lower 13% of the white population that you're talking about would be a more equal showing, a more equal comparison compared to compared to using the entire white population for those statistics and see whether or not it's actually true that these same that the comparisons between these poor black neighborhoods and poor white neighborhoods would be comparable.
But again, I would say help both, like just help people that are poor.
At which
right?
point you're
which would also involve
suggesting
black
that if the system is going to help all of these people, all of these poor people,
hell yeah,
where would the racism be? Where would the racism be?
Exactly, there'd be no racism. I know, I agree.
But the thing is that's already.
But you have to
happening, dude.
acknowledge that the systemic racism does exist in order to fix the problem. You can't even acknowledge the problem is there.
All right. Next question we got here from Anthony Salea. Thank you for the $10. There is still sundown towns in the South. Gerrymandering is a real thing. DEI is in itself racist towards whites, in my opinion. Same with scholarships and college acceptance favor minorities over merit.
So this is what I mean, is that if you have a poor K through 12 education and you call that merit, but if you're born in an area that has predominantly better educational outcomes, it's not just merit, it's the fact that the systems were there to help you that are not necessarily there for predominantly Black and minority neighborhoods across the United States. That's why DEI was applied. And again, when you look at the overall wealth outcomes for white people, it's not like that they're suffering as a result of DEI inclusion policies. I'm sorry, it's just not there.
But the fact that these same white people would be. Never mind. I was losing my train of thought as I was saying it.
No worries. We got $5 comes in from Daniel Z. Says First Amendment is just another white oppressing a strong Black man due to systemic racism.
just furthering the cycle.
I'm not oppressing anybody. I'm saying literally, hey, let's help people who need it. And dismantle barriers that prevent somebody from being able to succeed. I'm literally arguing, hey, let's give people the boots so they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But if they don't have boots, they're going to have a hard time doing that.
All right. And thank you for that, Daniel. And then we got Dane Snyder. Amender is using Wiki as a source. My professors would throw away a thesis if you used Wiki as a source because it's publicly edited, no scholarship.
There are scholarly sources within Wikipedia. It is a valid source. You can use Wikipedia. I mean, if you want, I can pull up the individual sources that Wikipedia is using. It would be the same result. It's a very lazy way of just dismantling a claim, even though that I brought up Brookings.edu as well as lead findings and empirical analysis behind that. So this is just an effort to try to dismantle an argument that is very strong, and that's not really a rebuttal at all.
All right. And we got $10 comes in from Lord of the Nerds. Thank you for that. Tulsa happened after a group of diverse people pew-pewed non-diverse people who then gathered and armed themselves and retaliated, not because they didn't like them having wealth. Amender is ahistoric.
It was predominantly white supremacists that did that. That's not me being historic. It was white supremacists that burned it down. If you're wondering what their internal motivations would be, I think you're the one that is ahistoric here.
All right. You don't got nothing for that, Tomahawk? Good.
It's literally called the Tulsa Race Massacre. It's fucking idiots.
We got Dane Snyder says, question for Amender. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges. What is the level of wealth for the lower 13% of white people compared to the Black population?
I don't know. But the fact that you have to compare the lowest 13% of white Americans to all Black people says that there's obviously a disparity of wealth.
It'd be much more, I guess, equal comparison. I would say.
Yeah, I'm sure if I grabbed the lowest bottom rung of people and compared it to all Black people, then yeah, it would be equal. What the fuck is that argument? Holy shit.
All right. We got another 10 comes in from Dane. Says, I'm going broke super chatting, but Tomahawk needs to stop letting Amender funnel feed him questions to answer and instead place the onus back on the affirmative to make and defend his argument.
It's the first time I'm doing this. I will get better. Sorry, I disappointed you.
I
today.
mean, I already defended the argument in the intro.
All right, fair. And then we got 20. Big 20 comes in from Elderline. Thank you, Elderline. If loans are based on assets, then it's not based on race, unless you are asserting income level is now a race. So, yes, you are saying all blacks while asserting not all blacks. So, you contradicted yourself.
I think I tried saying.
Do you
that
understand how
in
a
my-
generalization works and what like a bell curve is and how like these things work? Like, holy crap, that is an idiotic concept to you. Holy shit.
No,
Jesus
it's not
Christ.
that it's not that idiotic, but I
Oh,
tried to say
it's
something-
completely brain rotted.
It's not brain rotted because I tried to say something similar because
There are
you-
rich black people and there are poor black people. But if you
there are
look at
rich
the
white
entire
people
medium
and there are poor
overall,
white people.
I agree. But if you look at the overall, black people predominantly is
the
lower.
loans are
Holy
not
crap.
the loans themselves are not racist, and that was
If
what I
you
was
have
getting at
less
the time when
assets
I-
on average, then you have
Okay,
worse loans.
Having
Holy
less
shit.
assets is not a racist thing.
And
but
if you're seeing
anyone
as higher
can have
risk.
less assets. Anyone can have less assets, and therefore,
Holy shit.
anyone can have less assets. Therefore, if you're basically, it's not racist to have less assets when you're when all it is just you have less assets.
All right. We got another 10 comes in from Dane Snyder. Says, why are black people poor? Not my job to tell you why blacks are poor. It's your job to tell me. Because they are black. I need you to objectively demonstrate that.
Because of systemic racism. I've already objectively demonstrated
Yeah,
that.
that's because they're black. So you would need to, and that's my fault for not going after that. But yeah, you say
Yeah,
it's
throughout the
systemic
20th
racism
century, they were
because it's
pushed down
systemic
because they were
racism.
black. That's correct. That's literally what happened. Correct.
That you would need to demonstrate how that was the case. I can concede that before 1964, but after 1964, you after 1964
just
you would
for
need
fun,
to show
right?
that
But it
that
doesn't
is
just
the case.
magically
Just
go
because
away.
because populations and areas are predominantly black doesn't mean that that's
All right, let me
why.
break down,
Just because that they're
Stats
black
101
doesn't mean that
for
that's
you.
why that they get denied homes. When
If you could do me
can
a
say the
favor and
same
share
thing for the
that.
poor white neighborhoods. That's what I was saying.
If you could do me a favor and share that, I'd appreciate that. All right. So the vertical bar represents population. The amount of money, the further to the right, the richer you are. Black people, you could see here, you would have most people landing somewhere in the middle. White people here landing somewhere in the middle, but on average, white people have more money, right? That's not to say that there aren't black people that are richer than some white people. That certainly does exist, but the overlap is that white people in general are richer. That's true. We know that to be the fact. And that's because racist systemic discrimination or systemic racism still does exist. Holy fucking crap.
No, I mean you. It's not because they were the first.
Did you ever go to college? I went to college.
And that they were the ones that established.
Did you go
the
to
country in the
college?
first-
I went to college. I learned my stats. What about you?
I went to college as well, but I learned
Fabulous.
different things.
You got your bachelor's degree?
Actually, no. But it doesn't. I don't
maybe
see why.
that
I don't
systemic
see.
racism
I
has
don't
more to
see
do with
why
it.
that matters. I don't see why having a fucking piece of paper matters when you can learn from
specifically,
anywhere.
it's not the piece of paper. It's the fact that you learned more. You were in school
Not
more,
really.
and you got a formal education.
You can learn just as much from either.
Yeah,
trade
show me
school or
the
some
engineer
video-
that's sitting there making it, doing their engineering with YouTube videos. Like, have fun, dude. Yeah, okay, dude.
All right, so $5 comes in from Original Vintage. Thank you for that. Says, so lead in the water is instantly racist, even
No.
if white people drink the same water
No.
as blacks or Mexicans.
No.
The fuck are you
Lead
on about?
concentrations are higher among Black Americans in the United States because they are in areas of greater lead concentration. That doesn't make lead
But-
racist. That makes people had placed systems in such a way that negatively affects their educational attainment. You fucking troglodyte.
But if lead,
Jesus Christ.
but
These people
that
are
is
so
the-
maybe these guys just have the maybe these freaking
But that is
questioners,
the question.
they're
That
the
is
ones
the
that just
question,
actually
though.
just have unironic lead poisoning, bro.
You're
Like these people
basically
are so
saying-
fucking brain rotted. It's fucking insane, dude.
But
They're sitting there thinking that I believe lead is racist. That's how stupid they are.
your
Holy
argument,
shit,
your
dude.
arguments.
I
your
am so
argument-
glad. I am so glad that I
Your
didn't
argument
get
surrounds
my
the
fucking
fact that
my
lead
my daily
poisoning
intake
affects-
of fucking lead like this fucking guy right here
You're
in this
basically
question.
you're basically
Holy
saying
crap.
that white people don't.
I am
you're
so glad
suggesting-
that at least Speakeasy is making money off of the unironic lead poisoning from this question. Holy shit,
the
dude.
argument you're making though is basically boils down to that because it disproportionately affects black people more. You're saying
it's
you're
like a
saying that
system
lead
that results
affects-
in racism.
that's what you're saying. Lead. You're basically saying
No
that
racist.
lead
That
is-
no, I'm not saying lead
You're
is
saying
racist.
that lead is
is
racist
lead.
because
Lead
it
will be lead no matter what.
disproportionately
I don't.
affects
I don't look at
black
lead and go
people
like,
more
oh my
than
god,
white
the
people,
racism.
Even though white
so
people
idiotic.
can drink the same
Holy shit.
water. If white
Y'all
people
are
drink
fucking
the same
brain
water,
rotted,
do they not
dude.
get-
These are MAGA supporters,
But
bro.
do-
MAGA
do
supporters.
white pe-
Man,
and
I gotta
would
check the fucking
white
lead
people
concentration
get-
ratios in MAGA supporters. It would make
Would
so much
white
sense.
people still get stupider if they drank the lead water? And
Yeah, they would.
and so it's not it's
So in
not
their
inherently
predominantly
racist
white
that it
affluent
affects
neighborhoods, that
more
would be
black
less
people
lead
than
concentration
than
there.
white people.
Fuck me, dude.
All right. Next one comes in from Lord of the Nerds for $5. Thank you for that. Poor people outnumber diverse poor people as a whole, so there's intrinsically more poor neighborhoods for capitalist exploitation. Amender fails again.
For white people, outnumber diverse poor people as whole. So there's is this a fucking sentence? Do we
Yes.
need to like get hooked on phonics? What is happening with this sentence? I don't even know what this question is. Bro, I am so Speakeasy, you are getting so much money from all the lead poisoning from these MAGA supporters. Bro, they gotta be dude, what is in that Trump water, bro? We are fucking cooked. Holy
It's
shit.
really funny.
We are so
it's
fucked.
really funny that all of these guys are coming to my defense, even though I know I did really bad.
Dude, you're on the Speakeasy podcast. This is overwhelmingly right wingers on this show. They're literally going to suck your cock so fucking hard. And I promise you, their mouth is open much more for fucking black cock than they are about black history or black racism. I just want to let you know that that's the reality.
Is this the spurging that people are talking about? Am I experiencing it?
I'm just
Because-
letting you know it's the reality. Be
All
mad.
right. Next one comes in from Prince of Dogs for $5. Says, first sounds like you were raised in a lead pipe community. Ride the short bus.
Nope.
Thank you for that. Next one comes in from Prince of Dogs for $2. Just says, God bless Easy. Thank you very much. God blesses you as well. And another $2 just to support. Thank you very much, Prince of Dogs.
The empty two. We love to see it.
And then we got another $5 comes in from Lord of the Nerds. Says, diverse people can't scrape paint off walls. With your fancy rich white people paint scrapers. And that's systematic ismingisms.
Hold on. I can translate this. I speak it. Diverse people can't scrape paint off of walls with your fancy rich white people paint scrapers, and that's systematic ismingisms. First Amender.
Thank you for that
I
translation.
don't know
That
what it's
worked.
asking. Yeah, I didn't understand it, even with the translation.
New member comes in from Sempiternal Chaos. Thank you very much. I appreciate that big time. Kokomo sends in $10. Says full credit to First Amender civil debate. No spurging.
I couldn't get him to spur.
Thank you.
That's my failure.
Thank you for the $10, Kokomo. Trench comes in for $5. Says which is a greater harm for blacks? 75% single motherhood or lead poisoning? because affluent white areas have fathers.
This is
That is
another
something.
instance of systemic racism. You have instances where there is less fathers because there was often over policing in predominantly poor areas, again, requiring no racist actors. You have an instance, for example, where you have black mothers in predominantly black areas that are concerned about crime. They call in their city to try to get more police, which results in more black people going to jail, often for longer sentences throughout the 20th century, which results in more fatherless homes. But
So
yes,
not
fatherless homes are
no-fault
for sure
divorce.
a genuine issue in predominantly black areas.
So no fault divorce did not play a role in the fact.
I don't believe that to get rid of no fault divorce. I think no fault divorce is perfect. I would rather people
hold on.
leave
So
if
you
they're
don't believe
if they
that mothers aren't incentivized.
I think forcing people to be in a situation that they don't want to be in is worse off than to just allow people to leave.
But that's
This benefits white people as well as black people. Everybody benefits by having no fault divorce, specifically women.
Well, that's certainly
especially
not a
women.
system that seems to be racist, since everyone can take advantage of something like
Yes, I
no-fault
agree.
divorce.
That's why. I
Well,
didn't
that's
bring
a
up
no fault
but you
divorce
did.
is definitely a topic we can get into in the future for sure.
Yeah.
Dane Snyder comes in for $5. Says, if the issue with oppression is because people are poor rather than race, then Amanda's whole argument collapses.
I tried to go into that, but I got pressured and I crumbled. But
The
yeah,
problem-
that was basically what I was saying. Is like his whole point was that he's talking about poor people, and poor people isn't racial. It doesn't matter the disparity that there are more black poor people than there are white people. The system is designed to exploit poor people. There's no race behind it. So it's just poor people. Then that's not racial. That's
So
just
all
exploiting
else-
poor people.
So all else equal, then yes, that would be correct. But we don't have an equal amount of poor people for white and black people. It's overwhelmingly black people.
It doesn't matter if
Which
you're
is why it
exploiting- if
results
you're
in
exploiting
racist
poor
outcomes,
people,
right?
It doesn't matter if
It's
you're a
regarding
black poor
the
person or a white
system
person.
being racist, right? Again, doesn't require a single racist actor. You could just have a system that results in racist outcomes. And the fact is that black people are predominantly poorer, which means that when you're poor, you have less access to better loans or bank access or increased access to equity, which results in racist outcomes.
But
That's empirically verifiable. Jesus fuck, dude. I
But
swear
that's
to
the whole-
God,
and
I
I
gotta
was
get like
close to- I
fucking
was close to-
spelling blocks for these fucking kids,
You know
dude.
what?
It's fucking wild,
think
dude.
I
was-
I gotta
I
get
was
like
close
some
with this
fucking
point.
blocks with like A, B, C, D, like unironically, dude. I can't.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't sit there
definitely.
and bring up
Just-
standard deviations or talk about anything regarding statistics or any study or anything for that
Because
matter.
statistics-
I
in this
literally
case,
have
you're
to get
arguing-
you back into elementary school level. Like I guarantee you that if I said 2 + 2 = 4,
people,
I guarantee you
it's
there would be
not
right wingers that would
racist
tell
to
me
be
that the
poor.
answer is
You
5.
just don't
It's
have
fucking
money.
wild to me, bro.
It's
All
not
right.
It's not
Oh.
racist to be poor. It's just you just don't have money, bro.
Oh,
just
Jesus
because
Christ.
there's a
Oh,
proportion.
it's so retarded. Can we move on? Holy shit.
All right, the next one that comes in is from Lord of the Nerds again for $5. Thank you, Lord of the Nerds. Notice Amender didn't address my citation of the cause of Tulsa, which was the pew-pewing of.
White people.
I'm thinking this means white people. I'm
it's
guessing.
white,
Yeah.
white,
The
white.
Cause
pew-pewing of white
of
people.
Tulsa
Idiot
riot.
indeed.
Let's take a look. All right. So this is the Tulsa City County Library. Tulsa's Greenwood District. Let's see. Site of one of the most devastating race disturbances in the history of the United States. Before May 31st, 1921, Tulsa's black business district known as Greenwood flourished in spite of segregation. It boasted several restaurants, theaters, clothing shops, and hotels. Dubbed the Black Wall Street, Greenwood was an economic powerhouse. After May 31st of 1921, Greenwood would never be the same. The tension mounted between black and white communities over an incident that allegedly occurred at an elevator at Drexel Building in downtown Tulsa involving Sarah Page, a 17-year-old white elevator operator, and Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old black man. There are several versions that was supposedly transpired, but the most common being Dick Rowland accidentally stepped on Paige's foot in the elevator, throwing her off balance. When Rowland reached to keep her from falling, she screamed. Many Tulsans came to believe that through media reports that Rowland attacked Paige, although no sufficient evidence surfaced to substantiate that claim. The incident was further escalated by a local newspaper headline that encouraged the public to nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator. So yeah, once again, racist fucking bullshit, and you're wrong again. As always, right wingers are always wrong. The evidence is never on your side. You have to make shit up in order to make your reality work. And I swear to God, this whole fucking MAGA train, you are going to fucking lose for the midterms. Have fun.
All right.
So
Oh, sorry, you got something for that?
Yeah, so that whole cause thing where it was basically a sensationalized story of something of what would have been a normal would have been a normal thing is really the whole cause, and that's what he was talking about. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. Next one comes in from Dane Snyder again for $5. Says, "What the fuck is that argument? The argument is average wealth among whites is higher than the blacks because there are more whites than blacks."
These are things that
Holy shit. Holy shit. He actually has no idea what the fuck what the fucking average is. Okay, if I have 5 people with 5 oranges and then 1,000 people with 6 oranges, the 1,000 people with 6 oranges average is 6 fucking oranges, you fucking troglodyte. Holy shit, dude. How many fucking knuckle dragging fucking cavemen do you have in fucking chat? That is fucking wild. How do you not know what a fuck? That's middle school fucking math, you idiot. Holy
But
shit.
he's
Actual
not-
valid fucking crash out. You're unironically fucking elementary school. Oh, everybody, let's pull up the fucking worksheet on what mean, median, and mode is. You fucking idiot. Holy shit, dude. What are you feeding these people, Speakeasy? What the fuck?
I will ask this. I will ask
Actual
this question.
fucking
I will
moron.
ask this question.
I don't
It's like,
take any responsibility for what these people eat or drink. I'm just saying.
I was gonna try to ask him, just like, well,
Alcohol.
when
you need it. You need it for your body.
When you're
Fuck.
this after debate chill and panel
Fuck,
is going to be
dude.
interesting.
Holy shit.
I hope you stay for the panel, man, because this is going to
great.
be wild.
That was just great.
Full on crash out, bro. The dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Dade says, speaking of alcohol, damn it, I'm spending my whiskey money now. Tomahawk, no apology needed. You just need practice. Reach out to me and we can role play debating.
I appreciate
All right.
it, man. I will reach out.
All right. $5 comes in from Lord of the Nerds. Wait, so if chat has lead poisoning, then Amanda thinks it's likely diverse people in chat he is calling idiots.
Oh my god.
No comment for that one, Lord of the Nerds.
Nope.
Another one comes in from Lord of the Nerds, $5. Says Amanda ate too much lead and know that super chats are censored and we have to work around talking about these things. What an idiot.
I have a question for nerds. Was that a good interpretation of what you were trying to say? When I translated your comment from before, when I translated your super chat from before.
Oh. All right. Next one comes in from William Kramer Jr. Says, just because it happens doesn't mean I need that image in my head.
Again, not a single one of these comments able to rebut anything of what I said. Not a single one.
My one, I guess.
Not a single one. And just FYI, right? It was shit, I don't see his name anymore. What the fuck happened to his name? What's his name again? What's your name? Fucking
Tomahawk.
Tomahawk. I had you speechless multiple times in this debate. You know you fucked up in this debate. The only reason why you feel you're doing all right now is because the audience is in your favor. But I guarantee you that if you showed
It's
up
also the
to
after
a
debate.
group of flat earthers and you're arguing for a globe Earth, I'm sure the hundreds of people that are in favor of flat Earth would say that you got mogged in a debate, even though you are empirically correct. So the problem is that if just because that the audience seems to like you and people seem to dislike me doesn't mean I'm wrong. In
It is
fact,
also my
you
first
have
debate.
provided
You're basically
zero
beating up-
evidence,
you're beating up a newbie.
zero
So, I will
evidence
say,
on your side.
You are beating up a newbie. You're beating up at someone who has not done this and has never done this before this point. So you're basically hitting me at level 1, and you're like the quote unquote level 100 boss in this sense. But I'm just like the level 1
I don't know
crook.
if I'm that good.
Level 100. I like it. I
The
like
level-
it. First amender. You almost got me to read it, asshole. First, first amender won't spurg on Tomahawk because that would be systemic racism.
Because I can assure you, if I come back and I've leveled up,
But
to
me
being
as
a
an
100
individual
boss like
isn't
yourself,
creating
you're
a
going
system
to
to
lose.
discriminate against Tomahawk. It's just system anyway. It's a joke, but
You're a whole system now. Prince of Dogs says, "Get ready to run and cope on your stream." Thank you for the $5, Prince of Dogs. Then we got another $5 from Dane. Says, "Tomahawk, you need a bigger vocabulary and technique. Read some Soul, Jason
oh Jesus
Wiley,
fuck! Holy
Shadow
shit! Holy shit!
Jackson,
Fucking
Armstrong,
Solo.
Williams, and
wrong.
more."
He's not wrong. I do need to. I do need.
Oh
to
my
read
god!
these
Fucking
guys.
holy brain rot, dude.
Wait,
yeah,
wait, wait,
please
wait,
do
wait,
yourself
wait,
a
wait.
favor
Why
and
would
avoid
you
so
just
well.
hold
Holy
on?
shit!
Wait. Why would you discourage me from reading Thomas Sowell? That's a black guy.
Yeah, so the problem is because
Why-
here's the thing,
Why
right?
would-
Whenever
why
you
would- why
have,
would you-
whenever
why would
you have
discourage me
a
from reading one of
predominant,
my own?
listen, whenever you have a predominant expert in a field that flies in the face of the general consensus, you need to put your epistemology hat on and think, why is it that they have completely different arguments from the entire consensus? Is it because the entire consensus is wrong and this one guy is right? Or is it because this one guy is right and the entire consensus is wrong?
Have
Now,
there
it's
been-
totally possible,
have they-
right, that the one guy is right and the entire consensus is wrong. There have been
And
large
that has
paradigm
happened,
shifts.
right? That
There,
we've
yeah, there
seen
are
that,
there
right?
have been large paradigm shifts in
That's
the
how we
past.
got- that's how we
However,
got
at the same
global Earth
time,
theory.
hear me out. However, at the same time, the consensus is the consensus for a reason. There's a lot of evidence that is backing up the consensus. So
how did we
generally
get shit like the
speaking, when
scientific
someone
method
is coming up with some paradigm shifting thing and provides no paperwork and no research behind their quote unquote theories, you may as well take their ideas and throw it in the garbage.
Hold
And that's
on.
what Thomas
Well,
Sowell
if-
provides.
If we're just going to appeal to consensus, then all this, then shit like
it's not an
the
appeal
shit
to
like,
consensus.
the scientific
Jesus
method
fuck.
and
Never
how-
mind.
and
Moving
defeating
on.
flat
Moving on.
Earth to
Pearls
begin
before
with
swine.
didn't
It's pearls before swine.
Those were unpopular beliefs because the Catholic Church was as prominent as it was back then. It
I'm
took-
talking about scientific consensus, not the idiot fucking Catholic Church. What?
we're talking science only came about by being empirical and showing itself to be
Yeah,
to
no
superior
shit.
to
And then
the
there's a
superior
consensus
thing.
behind it. Jesus fuck.
It became a consensus after it was
Oh,
unpopular first. That's the whole thing.
All right, we'll get through these last few here. Dane Snyder for $10 says Amander's spurging about averages actually makes my point because he's presuming that each white person has 6 oranges. That's not how wealth is distributed amongst whites.
I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer.
All right, no worries. We got another 10 comes in from Dane Snyder. Says Amender didn't have Tomahawk speechless due to Amender's skill and logical soundness. Middle school first string basketball player against a third string college basketball player. That's all.
That's what I said. Level 100 boss versus a level 1 crook, and me. I'm the level 1 crook. But rest
Yeah.
assured, I will be
Charizard versus Charmander.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
going to need to do a
exactly.
lot of reading.
Wait,
A lot of reading.
Charmander's the first form, right? I
Yeah, for
forget.
Charmander's the first one.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Hell, you could even actually no. I would not give First Amender the quality of being a Mega Charizard. No. He is not a Mega Charizard.
$10 donated to me. It was saying
Go ahead.
appreciation for a good debate. That was it. By Kokomo CJ. Thank you, Kokomo, for that. I appreciate that.
Kokomo's a real one. $5 comes in from the random person. Sorry. It takes a special kind of racist like First Amender to see racism
I don't
in
see
everything.
racism in anything, but I have to acknowledge the existence of systemic racism. There's a great deal of academic research that is empirically able to show the existence of systemic racism. The question is whether or not that you're willing to acknowledge those findings or just simply claim bias and then be in your MAGA echo chamber.
If they took race out of all of those studies, would it still be racist? Well, actually, that's a really bad. Never mind.
No
No,
worries.
right, so-
$5 comes in from Lord of the Nerds. Finish the Tulsa article where it says the pewing started when diverse people pewed white people outside the sheriff's office. Don't stop early. Read.
I have no idea how you have this much disposable income being as brain rotted as you are.
It's just $5, bro. It's $5.
Yeah, I'm just saying, whoever this guy is, this is a trust fund baby, bro.
Trust
He's
fund,
donated like
Trust
20
fund.
times by now.
It's just $5.
He's
Trust
been
fund, it
donating
would be
over and
like
over
$100.
multiple times.
Like $50.
Bro's been donating over $100.
Is it we got prints of dogs for $5? Is it because you read it? It must be.
I mean, if you're talking about an academic source with empirical verification, then yes. That's yes.
That again, I would say that Brooks EDU article was basically just describing the effects, not the actual like either the locations or.
I mean, we can pull up individual studies, but that would require
Individual-
having more than a fucking MAGA brain rot TikTok brain.
Another $5 from Lord of the Nerds says, and this was a couple months after a white person was lynched.
Okay. Are you justifying the Tulsa massacre? Like, I don't know what the fuck.
That's not a justification of the Tulsa massacre.
I don't know what you're doing.
Then
Yeah.
we have last one here from Dane Snyder. $5 says, Tomahawk, what Amender is telling you is to commit the appeal to consensus fallacy. All of those authors mentioned are black.
Yeah, that's what I. That's
I
what I'm
didn't say
saying.
that the
It's like-
consensus is correct. What I'm saying is that use your brain. Think
Hold-
about it.
Wait.
There's a
You
reason
just
why
went
the
from-
consensus is the consensus.
You just
and you have to ask yourself whether or not one person has a paradigm shifting metric or that it is likely the consensus is correct. And to use your brain, because overwhelmingly
bullshit that
the
people talk
consensus
about?
is
Because-
usually correct over a single paradigm shifting person. Especially how
But
old is
you're-
fucking
you're
Solo by
you're
now?
talking about
Like
appealing to the
90
consensus
and
and then
nobody
not
can
appealing to the
corroborate
consensus.
his evidence?
That is the
Nobody
is this the
in his
contradiction that they
entire
talk
life
about?
has
This is
ever
like-
been able to replicate or corroborate any of his fucking findings, and economics has moved on without him. Why is that? Maybe he's a fucking quack. Maybe that's why. Fuck me, dude. I can't stand this shit. Fucking
Okay,
idiots, dude.
I mean,
y'all
All
are
right.
fucking brain
Oh,
rotted
he
as
just-
shit.
And
dude.
we did have-
fucking MAGA
sorry.
is so fucking cooked. We in the United States are so fucked. We are going through fucking brain drain. All the fucking left wingers have fucking left for fucking Europe, and now I'm still fucking sitting
they're
around
trying to-
with these fucking idiots.
Right
Holy
into the jaw.
shit.
Right into the jaws. of
Real
Muslims
quick too,
of
we
Islam.
got 3 cash apps I forgot to read here. One was $10. It says, "Go fuck yourself, easy." Thank you very much. I like that. Next one was $25. Says, "Merry Christmas."
Merry
Thank you very
Christmas.
much. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
And another one says for $5 says for your prayers are appreciated. Merry Christmas. Thank
Merry
you very
Christmas.
much, and I hope everything's going smoothly.
Are you still there?
And that right there wraps up the Q&A for tonight. Again, thank you to everyone in the chat here for all the questions, the engagement, the support. Seriously, the support is what allows me to keep bringing you these debates. The entire Swords of Reason experience here week after week has been because of you guys and your help. So I appreciate every single one of you. Okay. And of course, a huge thank you to our debaters, another big part of the Swords of Reason experience, for stepping into the arena tonight, sharpening their ideas in front of us all. And make sure you guys go and sub up to them in the description, okay? Before we move on, let me check real quick. Are either of you planning to hang for the open panel tonight?
Hell no.
I am.
All right.
As a learning
Hell no.
experience, I am.
All right, no worries. And so here's what's happening next. We're going to roll the debate outro. It'll run for about 4 minutes. Perfect time. Hit the washroom, grab a drink, stretch your legs.
I mean, they're gonna be nice to you, but I tell you, if I joined that, they would absolutely come in and just fucking be fucking giant assholes.
I
There's
mean,
no
I thought
fucking
you were.
way.
I
ain't gonna
thought
fucking-
being as a debater, you would need to be used to this.
I tried staying around once, and people were really fucking horrible.
Were they
and
horrible
just talking
because
over
they
me the
were-
entire
they were
time.
were they horrible because they were
fuck
countering
those
your
people.
arguments, or were they horrible because you're just a horrible?
Well,
person
no.
or something?
To be fair to Amanda, the first time he stayed, yeah, a lot of people just like piled up, right? And you're the
okay.
one side
Yeah,
Yeah,
against.
there's a
one.
this
I
is
wouldn't
this
sit
is
in the room
literally a
either.
right wing podcast. Like it's
You know what
going
I
to be
mean?
that way.
I can understand that, but
I can
I will
at
say
least-
that like if everyone does pile like that, I will rein it back in. But if you don't want to stay, that's totally up to you. I totally understand it.
Hey,
Good talk.
I just appreciate the fact that you even come on to these things to begin with. Like that's commendable
I
in
do
and
what I
of
can.
itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, totally up to you. But yeah, we're gonna roll the debate outro here. It'll run for about 4 minutes. Perfect time for everyone to hit the washroom, grab a drink, whatever you need to do. During the outro, I'm gonna drop the link in the chat for anyone who wants to join, test your ideas, all of this. Again, if you're coming to just spurg over everyone, troll people, bring personal drama, you're just gonna get muted and then likely booted real quick. So
Lunchtime 369 said First Amender stay for a bit. I will stay for a bit, but
based, I like
no,
it.
as soon as I start getting fucking dogpiled, I'm leaving. I ain't doing
All right, fair enough. And before we run the intro, one last reminder: make sure you subscribe to both debaters. Their links are in the description. And if you are enjoying these debates, hit the subscribe on the Speakeasy channel as well, so you don't miss any upcoming Swords of Reasons Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. This is where logic meets passion. All right, let's roll the outro, and I will see you all in a few minutes.
Step into the circle where the echoes collide. Truth through the static, no place to hide. Iron tongue, sharpened fire in our breath. We dance with conviction on the edge of death. Your words are bullets, mine are storms. Ideas forged where lightning forms. No retreat, no treason. This is the season. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through lies with steel precision. No faith, no fear, just raw collision. remains. Every scar, a mark of thoughts crusade. In the battlefield of minds we've made. Speak your truth, but bear the cost. Every claim can still get lost in the war of voice and vision. Feel the friction. We clash our swords of reason. No silence left for indecision. Ideas break with loud precision. We clash our swords of reason. Strike me with logic, I'll bleed my proof. We cut through chaos to carve out truth. Let the sparks fly, let the echo scream. This is no debate, it's a metal dream. We clash our swords of reason. In the storm of thought collision. Forged in fire, pure precision. We clash our swords of reason. Reason bleeds but never dies. No surrender, no retreat.
Just so
In the war of words, we find a beat. Swords of reason.
I need to. This
Entire
was
time.
eye-opening.
And we're
Okay.
back.
There we go.
Ugh.
Hello.